How did the Addams Family go from a black and white sitcom that your grandma probably loved to a glammed up Netflix show? Today, we are digging up the coffin to reveal the entire story of the Addams Family. Before the family came to television, the Addams were a recurring single-panel comic for The New Yorker created by Charles Addams. Yeah, that's his actual last name. And fun fact, he is a descendant of United States founding father John Adams, making the Addams Family as American as poison apple pie. The original series only ran for 2 years, but since there have been other TV shows, feature films, and even a Broadway musical, we'll see the Addams Family go from live action to animated and back again. No matter the incarnation, one thing is dependable: the cast of characters. The main four are Gomez, his wife Morticia, and their kids Pugsley and Wednesday. Gomez is always coming up with ambitious schemes and is deeply in love with Morticia, who's the stealth head of the family. They obsess over each other, frequently speaking French and kissing. Pugsley is brilliant at inventions and can cause some serious trouble, while his sister Wednesday takes after her mother with a more sullen, dark energy that made her one of the most enduring and popular characters. Sometimes they're at odds and occasionally try to kill each other, but most often work together as no one else can match their creepy level. They're accompanied by some seriously wacky relatives, like Gomez's self-destructive yet indestructible maniac brother Uncle Fester, the Frankenstein monster-esque, musically inclined man of few words Lurch, Gomez's witch mother grandmama, the hairy ladies man cousin It, who doesn't live with the family but visits frequently, and Thing, who's always happy to lend a hand. The Addams Family lives together in a Victorian mansion built on a combination of swamp/graveyard, which is the main setting for most of their antics. Alright, now that we're 6 feet under, let's get into some episodes. The original series, which ran from 1964 to 1966, cemented the public's view of the family with unforgettable portrayals of Gomez and Morticia by John Austen, which set the template for all future incarnations. One notable difference from future versions is that Fester is Morticia's uncle, but in almost all other incarnations, he's Gomez's brother. The entire series starts with episode 1. The Addams Family Goes to School, which introduces itself as a classic out of the gate with an all-timer theme song. The action gets started when a truant officer, Mr. Hilliard, shows up at the Addams mansion because Pugsley and Wednesday have never set foot in school. He meets the kids inside. He's the first of many guests to be completely terrified by the mansion. Next, Hilliard encounters Morticia, who has Lurch escort him to Gomez. He's indulging in his favorite pastime, playing with a model train set.
Everybody sends their kids to school.
Ridiculous. Why have children just to get rid of them?
Hilliard reports the weird goings-on at the Addamses to the principal, Miss Comstock, who thinks he's insane. We get our first glimpse into the Addams' home life, which, despite being spooky, is a very caring home. Gomez worships Morticia, and both of them cut a rug. Morticia receives a notice and decides she's going to send Wednesday to school. Fester shows off one of his recurring talents. Thomas Edison would be proud. Then Gomez and Morticia drop their kids off at school. That night, the children are horrified by what they read at school: Grimm's fairy tales. Morticia summons Mr. Hilliard back to the mansion, but he gets scared away by the Addams' menacingly morbid antics. In those short 25 minutes, all the central tropes are established that we will see recur again and again. One of the most famous episodes is the two-parter Morticia's Romance, which tells an interesting origin story. It starts on Gomez and Morticia's 13th wedding anniversary. The whole family is awake to celebrate, and the parents begin a bedtime story of how they met. Gomez is sick and being watched over by Grandmama. Little does he know, his mother and Granny Frump, played by the Wicked Witch of the West from the original Wizard of Oz, Margaret Hamilton, conspired to pair him up with Morticia's older sister, Ophelia. Gomez has no interest in Ophelia. She also keeps throwing him across the room. When he gets a first look at Morticia, though, sparks fly. Throughout the episode, the grandmas try to bring him closer to Ophelia. Gomez even ends up engaged, but his attention keeps coming back to his true love, Morticia. What really seals the deal is when Morticia speaks French while playing model train with Gomez. He cannot resist. Gomez must find a way to break off this engagement. The story picks back up in part 2, Gomez is scared to tell Ophelia that he doesn't care for her. Morticia introduces Gomez to her uncle Fester. He tries to get Ophelia to turn her affection to cousin It instead. Gomez disappears, and Morticia finds him hiding in a cave under the house. She gets him to resurface, then teams up with Fester to get Gomez to be honest with Ophelia. At the ceremony, Gomez admits that this isn't right, and Ophelia confesses her love for cousin It, who, as we will see time and time again, is irresistible to the ladies. Since the ceremony is already set up, Gomez decides to marry Morticia in that moment. And just like that, one of the most famous creepy couples in TV history is established. Another memorable episode, Christmas with the Addams Family, gets started when Pugsley and Wednesday tell their parents that a neighbor told them there's no Santa. Gomez and Morticia recruit Fester to convince them by dressing up as Santa. No milk and cookies for him, just light bulbs. The kids came downstairs expecting Santa, but he's running late. Little do they know he's jammed up in the chimney.
Probably scouting the house for a landing right now.
Morticia stalls, but the big guy's absence becomes impossible to ignore. Desperately in need of a Santa, Gomez heads to town and buys a Santa suit off a street corner Claus. He arrives at their window, and the kids buy into it. But he heads out the window too fast and rolls off the roof. Just then, the Fester Santa arrives, seriously complicating things. They run downstairs to encounter yet another Santa. Cousin It and Grandmama try too, but eventually the ruse is too obvious to ignore. But the Addamses check the tree, and it magically has presents underneath, implying the big guy came to visit after all. Though it was culturally impactful, the original run only lasted 2 seasons due to competition from another comic book adaptation, Batman. The next time we see this family, they'll be two-dimensional. The next series came out in 1973. But a year before that, the Addams appeared in the new Scooby-Doo movies episode, Wednesday is Missing. Not long after, Hanna-Barbera, Scooby-Doo's production company, made an Addams Family show of their own. The biggest difference with this incarnation is that it takes place on the road, with the Addams visiting different places all over the US. It's also a bit toned down, with no cigars or kissing this time, and changes up the relationships to be comic accurate, with Fester as Gomez's brother and Grandmama as Morticia's mother. Most of the original cast reprised their roles except for John Austen and Carolyn Jones. The premiere, The Addams Family in New York, sees the family take the Big Apple. In an odd character redesign, Wednesday is in pink. Anyways, the Addams reach Central Park.
Good old New York with its smog, riots, stick-ups, and hijackings.
Gomez thinks it's a trailer park and tries to rent a spot from a homeless man who happily takes his money. They park their camper and begin setting up. The homeless return to sell Gomez the Natural History Museum. Gomez shows up like he owns the museum and begins a tour. Gomez returns to the homeless men and asks for more land, and they sell Gomez the entire park. The Addams release all the animals in the Central Park Zoo, and complete chaos ensues. Later, the homeless men try to steal the rest of Gomez's money, but get terrorized by multiple animals in the camper. In the end, the police get involved, and Gomez reveals a document indicating that Central Park actually belonged to an ancestor of his. The cop begs them to reconsider, and they agree to leave the park if the city designates 1 day a year to let the animals run wild. Fair trade! Load up the camper, we're off to the next city. Another classic, Follow That Loaf of Bread, begins when Morticia gets invited to compete in a national bake-off contest. On the way to Chicago, Morticia bakes in the camper using alligator eggs and other weird ingredients, including Thing. At the bake-off, Morticia's bread falls all over the judges. They love it, having no idea of the hand that lurks inside. The Addamses head back to Central Park and realize Thing is gone. They deduce that Thing was in the bread and go searching for loaves that were sent around the town. They find Thing in a bread slicing factory about to be diced, but last minute he shuts the machine off. Morticia ends up adorning him with a collar. The series then takes the family to some seriously unlikely locations like Hawaii. The camper turns into a boat, and they take up temporary residence on the island. They get mistaken for a lost Stone Age tribe that has knowledge of a cave of riches. They begin to get targeted by a greedy group of scientists who try to speak in the tribe's language to the Addamses, causing the Addamses to think the scientists were the ones from the tribe. It gets cleared up quickly with Gomez admitting the truth. Gomez volunteers to help them find the cave. Pugsley thinks it's underwater. The professor's assistants check out the cave, but lie and say it's a dead end. Pugsley and Wednesday's octopus, Ocho, lead them to the cave to see for themselves. They catch the assistants in the act of looting.
Aloha, hola, Macola.
On shore, the kids tell the lead professor and catch the assistants escaping. Gomez uses lurch. In the end, the Addams' bird, Mr. B, brings the boat down, but the crooks escape. They try to raid the Addams' camper but get stopped by their various pets. In the end, the treasure is donated to the museum, and the professor credits the Addams. 4 years later, the original cast returned in the movie Halloween with the new Addams Family in color. But this time around, Morticia and Gomez have 2 more children, Wednesday and Pugsley Jr. That's not confusing or anything. Man, that house sure does look 70s. The story starts when Gomez's brother Pancho stays with the family, and Gomez gets news that he has to go to Tombstone, Arizona for a lodge convention. But he's actually being lured away by crooks. The criminals bug the house and plan to steal the family fortune. Halloween is coming up, and Pancho tells the legend of Cousin Shy, a family member who gives out presents and carves pumpkins to Pugsley and Wednesday. Gomez says his goodbyes and hits the road. He isn't even out of the driveway when Pancho tries to flirt with Morticia. The head robber, Bones Lafferty, and his assistant monitor the mansion from afar. Bones sends out Mikey, an unwitting colleague, to scope out the Addams' home. He cases the place and secretly records notes into a mic hidden in his briefcase. Meanwhile, Wednesday, who's home from Music Academy, practices piccolo. Mikey runs into trouble in the mansion when he starts hanging out with Fester. He steps on the tail of the family's lion Kitty Cat and gets a shock. Then is treated by Pugsley, who's undergoing training to be a witch doctor. Mikey runs out screaming. Next, Bones recruits Gomez and Morticia doppelgangers and 2 guys to be the Muscle, Hercules, and Atlas. Gomez returns and rushes to make the trimming of the scarecrow. Gomez sees Pancho holding Wednesday Jr. up to decorate the head and feels threatened. After a discussion with Cousin It, he comes back to take his rightful place by the kid's side. At a Halloween party, Bones in disguise as John Quincy Adams arrives with his men. Bones has his cronies take away Gomez and Morticia, and the doubles take their place. Gomez cleverly communicates with Wednesday to alert her. They re-emerge and thank Bones for the fun game. Gomez sees Morticia dancing with Pancho and wants to end it all. Fester reads his note and decides some medieval torture will help, but he actually grabbed the Gomez double. The Morticia double gets caught looking through the Addams' bedroom, and even worse, Pancho is all over her.
What depressed, mon cher?
Both men worship the Vi for the imposter's affection when the real Morticia shows up. The Halloween party downstairs is a rockin' time. Lurch catches wind of the intruders and scares them off. Bones goes for the safe himself. He eventually runs into Fester and does a shift on his torture device. I'm sure Fester thought it was just a massage. Bones confesses to it all. He gets released and tries to escape through a secret passage, but comes face to face with Kitty Cat. He runs away. Later, the police, responding to a noise complaint, arrive at the house. Bones and his gang immediately surrender. The Addams Family celebrates a happy Halloween, ending the night in song and welcoming Cousin Shy. A fun, fitting send-off for the original cast. Although, we will see John Austen again soon. The franchise sat dormant until 1991, when it was rebooted by a blockbuster director, Barry Sonnenfeld. This cast is just as effective as the original, with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston heading it up as Gomez and Morticia. The supporting players are equally as effective, including Christopher Lloyd as Fester, and an early performance by Christina Ricci as Wednesday. The film starts with a Christmas carol, but little do these eager performers know that outside the Addams' mansion, a cauldron lurks above, ready to drench them. We meet Gomez, who stands outside of Fester's abandoned room. He confesses that since he hasn't heard from Fester in 22 years, he's losing faith that his brother is still out there. Gomez heads to Morticia's room, where he finds her asleep and delivers a typically adoring monologue. He practices his golf swing and seriously is off his neighbor. As Morticia tends to her garden, Gomez tells her that he feels responsible for Fester's disappearance, and she says he should go easy on himself. The mansion is visited by Tully, Gomez's lawyer, and a loan shark whom he owes money to, Abigail Craven. She demands a payment and he promises it's coming. Tully greets Gomez and they immediately get into a friendly sword fight. Tully tells Gomez he intends to deposit Fester's retirement fund into his personal account for tax reasons. The good-natured Gomez has no idea he's being scammed and agrees, but not until next quarter. Tully needs the money now. At his office, Tully meets Abigail's adopted stepson, Gordon, who shakes him down. Tully realizes that Gordon looks a lot like Uncle Fester and sends him to impersonate the Addams' dear uncle to pay off Abigail. They agree, but in private. Gordon and Abigail scheme to take the money for themselves and have Tully take the fall. That night, Tully and his wife attend a seance where Morticia tries to reach out to Fester from beyond the grave. They surprisingly hear a knock at the door and rush over. Gomez buys the disguise immediately, completely thrilled that his brother returned, but he's not the only one in disguise. Abigail poses as Dr. Greta Pinder-Schloss. She explains that Fester has been lost in the Bermuda Triangle until she rescued him and put him into treatment. She drops off Gordon but says she will return to check on him. Wednesday stands menacingly while fake Fester gets acquainted with his new/old digs. He's utterly terrified of Thing, but Gomez thinks his screams are typical of the normal Fester, convincing Gomez of the disguise even more. The next day, Gomez brings Fester to the family vault. He's brought down a fun-looking slide which leads to a steam-covered lake. This makes Willy Wonka's boat ride look like it's a small world. They reach their destination and Fester is stunned by the fortune. Gomez was only there for an old family video, which shows him and Fester gleefully scaring people back in the day. Gomez apologizes to Fester for throwing him out after he one-upped Gomez by romancing some conjoined twins, whom Gomez had his eyes on. Back with Wednesday, she tells Pugsley she suspects Fester isn't who he says he is. Later, Gomez and Morticia attend an auction hosted by Abigail. Gomez begins to get suspicious when Fester begins showing some subtle irregularities, like his inability to get out of the family's finger trap.
How do you take it off?
At home, Fester tries to access the vault but gets taken on a wild ride instead. He gets ejected outside the house where Morticia meets him. She takes him on a tour of the graveyard and outlines the death of various family members. She reminds him that anyone who crosses the Addams family will be subject to their unflinching vengeance. Abigail returns as the doctor to ease Gomez's concerns that not Fester isn't really Fester. She uses therapy speak mumbo-jumbo to blame Gomez's suspicion on a delusion. Her visit convinces him. Fester begins building a close relationship with Pugsley and Wednesday. He checks in with Abigail, who tells Fester to make a move on the fortune when the rest of the family is at the kids' play. However, he'd rather attend the performance. At the school, Morticia speaks to Wednesday's teacher, and it's a classic Addams weird clash against the normal. Fester surprises everyone and attends the show after all. Abigail goes to the Addams mansion herself and quickly gets caught in its traps. Meanwhile, Wednesday and Pugsley's performance is delightfully gory. Anyone got a Band-Aid? That night, Fester tells Wednesday a bedtime story. Seems like he's really enjoying being in Addams. Morticia and Gomez sit in the graveyard and reminisce about how they met at a funeral. Later, they join the others for breakfast, where they're joined by Abigail, who breaks the news that Fester needs to go back with her. Outside the mansion, she gives Fester a reality check. This is not his family. It's time to move on. Due to Fester's impending departure, Gomez and Morticia decide to host a raging going-away party, and all the extended family comes, including everyone's favorite hairy cousin. Upstairs, Wednesday stumbles on Abigail shaving Fester's head to maintain the disguise. The jig is up. He chases after her, but Wednesday gets away. On the dance floor, Gomez catches up with the conjoined twins from his past. They get talking to Tully and reveal that Fester owns the Addams property, not Gomez. Fester arrives at the party and dances the mamushka with Gomez. Elsewhere at the party, Tully strikes up a conversation with Judge Womack, one of the Addams' neighbors, and his wife is swept off her feet by the ultimate player, Cousin It. Fester checks in again with Abigail, and she's shocked to learn he's been having an amazing time. She guilts him into staying loyal to her. Morticia notices Wednesday is missing, and the family sets out to find her. Fester stays behind to watch the house. With the Addamses gone, it's the perfect opportunity to rob them blind. Gomez discovers Wednesday asleep in a mausoleum. They return to the mansion to find they've been locked out. Tully imposed a restraining order, issued by the true owner of the house, Fester. Gomez decides to take them to court and quickly fails, leaving them with nothing but mothballs. The Addams family is forced to vacate. In the mansion, Tully, Fester, and Abigail try to reach the vault. Meanwhile, the Addamses take on normal jobs. Well, normal for them. Morticia tries her hand as a teacher, but scares the class with a graphic retelling of the witch trials. Thing has more success as an office mailman. At the mansion, Fester is depressed as he and Abigail have been unable to find the money. And it seems like he misses the Addamses quite a bit. That night, when the rest of the family is asleep, Morticia sneaks out and visits the mansion, but gets captured by Abigail and company. They torture her for access to the vault, and she loves it.
You've done this before.
Thing, who secretly followed her, rushes back to warn Gomez. Fester pleads with Morticia to come clean so they can stop torturing her. Abigail insists Fester himself strike the next blow. In that moment, Gomez returns, and this time he's not playing. Abigail points a gun at him and forces him to release Tully and open the vault. She loses it at Fester for being so incompetent, and he can't take it anymore. Instead of pulling a book from the shelf that opens the secret passage to the vault, he pulls another. A tornado rages through the inside of the house and throws Tully and Abigail out of the house and directly into their graves. Fester gets shocked in the process. 7 months later, it's Halloween, and Fester is fully in the family. It turns out Gordon was really Fester all along, and he lost his memory in the Bermuda Triangle all those years back. It only returned after he got struck by lightning. The film ends with the family more united than ever, waking the dead in the graveyard. This cast was so fantastic that a sequel was inevitable, but first, we're going back to animation. After the success of the movie, a new animated series premiered only 1 year later. The cast is all new with the exception of John Austin, who reprises his role as Gomez. The first episode, Happy Esther, Fester opens with a family dinner, but one problem, Uncle Fester is missing. He's been in the basement for an entire week. Right on cue, he pops up to reveal his new invention, a fabric that's bulletproof, self-cleaning, and even tastes good. He calls it Happy Esther. Next, Gomez and Fester visit their neighbor Norman to try and get him in on Happy Esther business. He invites them in with the intention of getting the formula for himself. He has his wife Normina assist in this venture. He tries to get Fester to sign away the rights by offering him a job. Something tells me he'd freak out HR. Fester isn't that naive though. Norman Jr., or NJ, decides to call Wednesday and Pugsley. The next day, Norman tries to coax Fester into signing again, but he'd rather be a speed bump in the parking lot than vice president. Norman tries to convince him with a tour of his office, but he prefers a rank janitor's closet. Norman reveals he wants the formula to drive his rival company Rumpco out of business. Fester still doesn't want to sign without Norman meeting his list of demands, which is insane. The CEO of Rumpco's hitman sets a bear trap for Fester, but he seems to enjoy it. I guess that's his form of acupuncture. Wednesday pickpockets the man's wallet and discovers he's from Rumpco. The hitman imprisons Wednesday, Pugsley, Thing, and Fester. Wednesday decides to tell him the formula, and the hitman begins mixing ingredients while the CEO of Rumpco listens. Victorious, Fester goes to sign the contract and gives Norman the formula, and immediately gets kicked out. The family watches news coverage of products made with Happy Esther roll out, and it makes everyone itchy. Can't win 'em all, Norman. The episode ends like almost all the others in this series, with a family dance. Episode 2, Dead and Breakfast opens with the kids coming home from school, but they're depressed because they received a special assignment from the Happy Dale Club at school. They have to start their own business this weekend. Once Gomez gets wind of the project, he suggests a Dead and Breakfast. Gomez launches into action and starts sprucing the place up with barbed wire. Customers begin arriving. Norman observes from across the street and immediately wants to shut them down.
I'm not Happy Dale Heights' largest underwear manufacturer for nothing.
NJ mails himself to the Addams. The first customer arrives, who turns out to be a health inspector with the intentions of shutting the business down before it even starts. Gomez shows him around the Addams house, which is chock full of violations. The kids decide to use Grandmama to distract the inspector. She flirts with him and goes straight for his feet. Didn't know Grandmama rolls like that. It freaks the inspector out. Next, a customer arrives. She asks for a safe space to store her jewelry and they take her to a room containing countless treasures. Later, when they check it back out, the room is cleared out. In the foyer, the guest has caged Morticia and Gomez and is armed, but she's not a match for the Addams family. The kids put her on a wild train ride, which they can apply to their assignment of creative problem solving. Outside, Norman demands to hear the health inspector's results. He emerges from the house totally relaxed from the hours of foot massage and decides to take Grandmama out on a date. Whatever floats his boat. Episode 3. The day Gomez failed finds the always positive patriarch feeling depressed and uninspired. He feels like he's done everything and needs a real challenge, not just shaving Fester's back. Morticia suggests the one thing he's never done is fail, so he sets out to lose. He decides to learn the craft from Fester. Gomez invests in a failed business, sure to lose profit in the stock market, and decides to open a chocolate diet center, another sure to be unsuccessful enterprise. He eagerly awaits news from the stock market. Even worse, the diet center ended up making people sick, which resulted in them losing weight. I guess Gomez can't mess up. It's not long before Gomez is rolling in cash, literally. Next, Norman visits the Addams house to offer another failure opportunity. Sell a plot of land at a loss to make way for a freeway. Sounds like a horrible deal. Perfect. What Gomez didn't realize is that the land he agreed to sell is his house. Dang it. Gomez appreciates that Norman made him fail, but he can't let the house go. He tells the construction folks that the house is built on a swamp, and they agree that the land could not support a freeway. The city decides to route it right through Norman Meyer's house instead. Gomez is still depressed, being unable to fail, but then Morticia gives him a new perspective. He's failed at failing, which technically makes him a success? This is getting confusing. Time for a family dance! Episode 4, Girlfriendstein, begins with Morticia and Gomez having a nice cup of tea while Fester rolls around the cemetery, and the kids play an explosive croquet match. Lurch seems a little upset, but won't say why. Pugsley, Wednesday, and Thing raid his room and discover a box full of love letters and one breakup letter. They tell Gomez, Morticia, and Fester, and after some discussion, they put Fester up to building Lurch a new girlfriend. They find Lurch storming out, and the kids decide to spruce him up for his new hot date. Wednesday and Pugsley check on the new girl, and from a remote control, Lurch can choose any personality he wants. He doesn't strike me as the controlling type. I'm sorry. Fester cycles through multiple personas until Lurch meets the robot as a groupie. He's not into it, so Fester switches it to another who's already talking about the wedding. Still, Lurch isn't impressed. When all hope seems lost, Lurch's old girlfriend returns. They reconcile and Gomez immediately plans a double date. Cousin It drives the couples away and they're off for a night on the town. The first segment of episode 6, A Thing is Born, focuses on everyone's favorite hand. With Gomez and Morticia away on their 32nd honeymoon, Wednesday tries to fire Pugsley out of a cannon, but Thing doesn't want anything to do with them. Lester and Lurch try to use his services too, but he's just not interested. Something is up. Wednesday deduces that Thing is bored and wants to see the world. Grandmama reads Thing's palm and sees fame and fortune in the hand's future, but he has to leave home to achieve it. The family says goodbye and adores Thing with gifts. He heads for Hollywood and immediately finds himself at home. Ooh, snazzy. He is an immediate success, stealing jobs away from an already established hand model. The one problem though, his agent, Grandmama, is starting to miss the mansion and decides to head back. She returns a second later, but wait, that isn't Granny. It's the hand model in disguise. He tries to apprehend Thing, but he just can't seem to get the upper, wait for it, hand. Following the model's capture, Thing is truly a superstar, but what Thing misses most is his family, so at long last, he heads home. What a fun, fame-filled detour. The second segment, Choke and Dagger, starts with another wholesome game between siblings, this time with Wednesday tied up, but two mysterious visitors sneak into the mansion, attack Cousin It with hairspray, and steal him away. But they can't get by Lurch, who seems to be blocking every exit. Pugsley places a giant mousetrap at the bottom, with a pillow to break the fall. That'll work. Next, Wednesday sets up a phony It that blows up on impact. Haven't these guys had enough? Apparently not. They get into a sword fight with Thing, who requests backup. Finally, they're placed on a train out of the mansion and directly into a piranha-infested lake. Outside, they do get hold of Cousin It, but Wednesday baits them to look in Pugsley's coat for secret documents, and it's rigged to explode. Cousin It then ties them up in hair, and all is well yet again.
Today wasn't such a bad day after all, huh?
On to episode 9, FTV, and it opens with Norman Meyer staking out the Addams' mansion. Lurch and Fester bring him inside and release him. Fester tries to get another family member to play with him, but Gomez and Morticia tell him he needs to find a way to enjoy his time alone. Fester digs a hole into Norman Meyer's house to ask for his dirty bandage. Sounds like hours of entertainment. Norman suggests he watch TV, and Fester heads home to do so. At home, Fester channel surfs and gets the idea to set up his own TV station. The family gets seriously into it, and they all want their own show. Fester keeps annoying Norman Meyer for advice on the station. Norman swears he's gonna get Fester. The satellite launches into space, and the Addams program begins, starting with an advice show from Lurch and Wednesday. He just grunts, but the callers love it. Other programs cycle through, like The Dead Detective, which is just a skeleton Wednesday and Pugsley propped up, and a half-hour program of a slug named Louie sitting around. Compelling stuff. Norman Meyer tells Fester he wants to take over his station as president. Fester, thinking Norman is trying to help him, agrees. At the Addams mansion, Norman Meyer distracts the Addams and sabotages the box that receives broadcasts from the satellite, which causes it to fall out of orbit straight for the city. Norman Meyer puts Fester back in charge, so he takes the fall for the disaster, but that doesn't stop the satellite from falling to Earth, right onto Norman Meyer's house. The crater form becomes a world wonder, causing mass tourism and getting Fester in the town's good graces. No matter how insane the scheme, Fester always ends up on top. Episode 11, Hide and Go Lurch, begins when Gomez takes the rest of his family on a tour of the attic. They dig up old artifacts, including the hiding horn. Gomez explains you're supposed to blow the horn, and it triggers a game of hide and seek. Gomez and Fester used to play this game as kids, and they decide to rematch against Lurch. Fester blows the horn, and the game is on. Fester and Gomez find various hiding spots, including in the hair of Cousin It, but Lurch is too good and finds them almost immediately. They take an invisibility potion, go to space, but nothing seems to work. Fester reveals that he has a super secret hiding place, and it worked, but Lurch confesses to Wednesday shortly that he knew the whole time and let them win. What a guy. He tells Gomez and Fester next, but it doesn't take away their victory high. Fester blows the horn and Lurch hides next and disguises himself as Pugsley. They're never gonna find him. Next, episode 12, Addams Family PTA, starts when the kids get home from school. NJ wants to come over to play with Wednesday and Pugsley, but Mrs. Norman Meyer doesn't allow it. Uncle Fester comes out of the house next and recruits Wednesday and Pugsley to help train his pet tiger, leaving Morticia alone to paint. She makes a masterpiece, but it needs one more thing. Ah, there you go. Morticia gets the kids' attention with some hardcore gardening, but Granny comes in next and predicts bad luck for her clients. She recruits the kids to help, leaving Morticia alone yet again. She goes to Gomez to discuss feeling neglected by the kids, only to find he's distracted by playing hockey with Uncle Fester as the puck. Morticia is distraught until she receives a letter from the kids' school requesting volunteers to help in class. She and Gomez take it up. Morticia comes to school. In Wednesday's class, she's asked to play some music and scratches the blackboard.
Mrs. Addams!
Not exactly melodic. Later in Pugsley's class, Morticia has to instruct the class about pet training and brings in her terrifying alligator. Next, she cooks lunch and makes a food creature that the kids chase. The principal tells Morticia that he's had enough. She's devastated, but the principal comes to the Addams mansion to ask Morticia to host the school's scavenger hunt. But not everyone is happy about it. Wednesday tells Pugsley that she doesn't think their mom fits in with school activities. Morticia gives out the list of items to find, the first being a man in a trench coat, leading the kids to chase after Fester. Unbeknownst to all, Mrs. Normanmeyer sets out to sabotage the hunt. The final item is a thorny vine, and the kids get more than they bargained for. Due to Mrs. Normanmeyer's interference, the vines overtake the house. Morticia quickly shuts them down, but the principal is furious and bans her from all school activities. Just then, the kids come back raving about how much fun they had on the hunt. The principal immediately relents and allows her to plan the hunt next year, and Morticia finally feels appreciated. The finale of Season 1, Little Big Thing, finds our favorite couple, Gomez and Morticia, tanning in the moonlight, but they're interrupted by Grandmama, who falls into a bottomless pit. Later, she causes an explosion, and Morticia thinks it might be time to talk with her. Morticia tells her she needs glasses. Granny sets out to prove her vision is fine. She reads Thing's palm but can't seem to focus, so she uses some of Fester's growth formula to get a bigger picture. Thing grows massive. Granny wants to shrink Thing but can't read any of the book titles, so she sends Thing into town, and he inadvertently goes kaiju mode. Morticia gets word and brings the family into town, where Thing is scaling a giant building like King Kong. Lurch throws Granny to Thing, where she sets out to protect Thing from the helicopters, but she lucks out. It's being piloted by none other than Cousin It. Back at the mansion, Thing is small again, due to It's idea to run Thing through the car wash. Granny finally accepts that she needs glasses. Something tells me she's still gonna be getting into trouble though. Season 2 begins with more spooky fun and Color Me Addams. Morticia is painting various members of the family when Gomez gets the idea to display her art in a gallery. Gomez brings the family's art to a gallery head who gets overwhelmed and disgusted by their work. Morticia tries a different gallery to the same results, complete terror. They decide to host a charity art show. Fester invites the Normanmeyers. Norman sends his wife to sabotage the event, while he awaits a super important underwear business call. That night, the event is a smash. The family unveils their work, and Mrs. Normanmeyer critiques it. Morticia paints a portrait of one of the attendees. Masterpiece. Next, the art critic from Happydale Gazette shows up and says he's gonna write the most scathing review of the show. Morticia is sad, but her family reassures her that they just don't get it. When no one's looking, Mrs. Normanmeyer sets out to destroy Morticia's prized painting, but Thing catches her in the act and touches up the piece with living paint, causing gargoyles to fly off the canvas. They begin wreaking havoc all over town and in the mansion. Morticia uses living paint to come up with a musical solution. They hop back into their painting. Morticia is still on the hook and threatened with jail time, but just then the art critic returns and declares Morticia's piece a masterpiece, and a genius like her can't go to jail, and in the end, they all dance. Alright, on to episode 4, Sweetheart of a Brother. Wednesday notices Pugsley has a sunny disposition and immediately alerts her parents. The issue is, he's in love with Shala, a girl from his class. She called him disgusting, which Pugsley, of course, views as a compliment. Gomez gives valuable advice on how to pull. Wednesday wants to play, but Pugsley is too obsessed. He recruits Wednesday to help him talk to Shala. At school, Pugsley invites Shala to a family picnic, but she already has plans. Pugsley decides to take a normalizing formula potion. It works, much to Wednesday's dismay. She tells Gomez and Morticia. Pugsley is so normal that he begins hanging out with Mr. Normanmeyer. His parents are highly concerned. Last at school, Pugsley is a total teacher's pet, and the rest of the kids make fun of him until he reveals that he did all of their homework for the rest of the year. He invites Shala to the picnic again, but is stopped by a bully. He gets shoved into a locker, but things springs him out. NJ encourages Pugsley to revert to his old self to beat the bully. He doesn't and gets shoved in a trash can next. He goes to Wednesday next, who gives him the same advice as NJ. The bully goes for Shala next, and Pugsley snaps out of it. He bullies the bully, Addams Family style, and sends him running away. Pugsley accepts himself as an Addams and even impresses his crush. The next episode, 00 Honeymoon, is a bit of a James Bond parody. We find Cousin It, or should we say 00 It, in a villain's lair. He beats the bad guys, gets the girl, and sleds away. Gomez, Morticia, and Cousin It watch this play out on a tape at home. But things go awry when It receives a call that Thundermane, the villain we just saw, escaped from jail. Gomez and Morticia decide to apprehend the baddie while taking another honeymoon and leave. It gets some much needed relaxation at home. Gomez and Morticia travel to Spain and get on the mission. They encounter a totally not suspicious man named Shampoo who was waiting for It. Back home, the Normanmeyers spy on the mansion, and they're visited by the one and only Thundermane. Back in Spain, Shampoo and his thugs threaten the Addamses, but Gomez and Morticia make quick work of them. They continue their search to no avail. Over at the Addams mansion, the Normanmeyers arrive with Thundermane. The parents return to the mansion and find the rest of their family and the Normanmeyers imprisoned by Thundermane, with It tied up to be laser beamed. Thundermane flirts with Morticia, and it unleashes a fury in Gomez that she's totally into. Gomez goes Zorro mode and begins dueling with Thundermane. Thundermane's hair explodes and the family is freed.
Remember, dear, I don't always like it when other women look at you.
By the end, the mission and honeymoon were a huge success, with Gomez and Morticia more in love than ever. Episode 7, King of the Polycotton Blues, is a musical episode where Normanmeyer explains why he hates the Addams Family. It all starts with a date between Mr. and Mrs. Normanmeyer that gets interrupted by the Addams Family. An alert sounds in their foyer, and the man stations like they're in a submarine. Norman looks out the viewfinder and sees Fester in the driveway paving himself. NJ wakes up from the commotion and asks his parents why they can't leave the Addams alone, and Norman breaks into a blues-inspired song. Both parents recount previous offenses from the family, and I gotta say, they got some soul! The series finale, A Girl and a Ghoul, opens with Fester thrown out of a plane. That looked like it hurt. Eesh. Meanwhile, Wednesday is seriously obsessed with Graveyard Gary, who's sort of like a male Elvira. Wednesday and Pugsley watch his show, where he announces he'll be visiting the Addams graveyard. Wednesday tells her parents that she admits she admires Gary more than her father. Morticia seems concerned, but Gomez is understanding. Later, Graveyard Gary shows up and Wednesday is smitten. But she has no idea that Gary is a fraud and not an actual freak. Wednesday shows him around the mansion, but Gary can't seem to handle the insanity. Gomez saves him multiple times, but Wednesday accuses him of interfering with their date as they're talking. Gary gets into trouble again. Gary swims away and Wednesday thanks Gomez. They end up with a father-daughter swim in the swamp. And that wraps up this incarnation of the Addams Family. But surprisingly, it's not the last we'll see of John Astin. Up next came another theatrical release, Addams Family Values, which garnered even more critical acclaim than the original. The same brilliant cast from the first movie is back, including Raul Julia, who unfortunately passed a few months after the film's release. This version is edgier than anything that's come before, so let's get into it. Fester howls at the moon, Grandmama buries a live cat with the kids, and Lurch shreds on the organ. All is in place when Morticia makes a startling announcement. They run to the hospital when a new Addams is born. Welcome to the family, baby Pubert. Gomez shows off the nursery, which is fittingly creepy, including a mobile made of knives. On the staircase, Wednesday tells Pugsley that when parents have a new baby, one of their children has to die. She gets started by dropping the baby off the roof. Gomez catches him just in time. The parents sit down with their kids and tell them that they don't need to kill the baby, but in the very next scene, Wednesday is trying to put him under a guillotine. Little Pubert catches the blade before it can decapitate. Outside, Gomez tells Morticia he's worried she's under stress and has an idea for a way to help. A parade of nannies audition, but Wednesday scares off multiple candidates. The last one is a nanny named Debbie Jelinski. She immediately feels at home in the mansion and flirts with multiple Addamses. Debbie holds Pubert and meets his siblings. She isn't intimidated at all. Wow, she must have nerves of steel. Debbie meets Fester next, who is a cowering mess. I think he has a crush. In her room, Debbie watches news coverage of herself. She's known as the Black Widow and has a pattern of taking on new identities to seduce men and con them out of their fortunes. Her next target is none other than Fester. Gomez and Morticia leave and put Debbie in charge. She gets to work going through Fester's sensitive documents, and she determines he's filthy rich. But Wednesday is onto her. Debbie lies to Gomez and Morticia by telling them that the kids requested to go to summer camp, so she's free to pursue Fester. Gomez and Morticia drop them off at Camp Chippewa. It's distractingly cheery compared to what the Addamses are used to. One of the nerdiest campers, Joel, immediately has eyes for Wednesday. Back at the mansion, Fester is quickly smitten by Debbie. Later, Fester and Debbie go on a double date with Gomez and Morticia. When Debbie's in the bathroom, Gomez tells Fester how to riz Debbie up. Gomez and Morticia do a seriously impressive dance routine. After dinner, Fester takes Debbie for a stroll through the graveyard, and Debbie puts the seduction on the max level. He finally confesses his love, and it's not long before they're engaged. Over at Camp Chippewa, Wednesday and Pugsley receive an invite to Fester's upcoming wedding. The camp counselors sentence them to the Harmony Hut, a room adorned with inspirational posters and stuffed animals. Joel is there as well for refusing to participate in camp activities. That night, they break out, but the camp catches them in the act. Their punishment is a rousing group song of Kumbaya.
Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
At the mansion, the Addamses prepare for Fester's big day. Margaret, who you might remember from the first movie, arrives with cousin It and a baby of their own. I can see the resemblance. Over with Wednesday, she's starting to get closer to Joel. She tells him about Fester's engagement and invites him to the wedding, but totally not as a date. Back at the mansion, It officiates the ceremony, and just like that, Debbie and Fester are wed. They head away for the honeymoon, and Black Widow doesn't waste any time. But she didn't count on Fester's conductivity. Afterwards, they go to consummate the marriage, but she makes a challenging proposal. He has to promise never to see his family again. He gives in. At camp, Wednesday receives a letter from Fester saying he will no longer speak to the kids. She knows this means he's in serious trouble. Debbie and Fester return from their honeymoon, and she reinvents his look. Over with Gomez, he's seriously disturbed that he hasn't heard from Fester. Morticia assures him that it's just a phase. At Camp Chippewa, Joel shows the Addams sibling his serial killer trading cards, which include the infamous Black Widow. Wednesday thinks it's Debbie. Camp wraps up with a giant stage performance, and Wednesday gets cast. Morticia, Gomez, Lurch, and Grandmama visit Fester in his new house, but Debbie stonewalls them. She says Fester hates them. The family reports this to the police, but there's technically been no crime. Gomez resolves to take the matter into his own hands. Wednesday, Pugsley, and Joel are caught trying to escape again. They're forced to return to the Harmony Room and watch a happy movie. A fate truly worse than death. Wednesday emerges from the room, vowing to contribute to the pageant. She shocks everyone with a smile. Something tells me she's got a plan. Back at the Addams mansion, Pubert sports a curly blonde mane, unlike the traditional Addams shade of black. Grandmama immediately thinks he's possessed and blames it on the trauma of family separation. At camp, it's time for the performance, a Thanksgiving pageant. Wednesday comes on stage dressed as Pocahontas, along with Pugsley and Joel. It looks like a typical sanitized portrayal of the holiday when Wednesday goes off script. They raid the stage, burn it down, and escape. Debbie waits for a bomb to go off, disguised as an anniversary present, which will take out Fester once and for all. It explodes. But Fester is unharmed and thrilled that she's so thoughtful. She finally shows her true self, and it looks bad for him until he gets an assist from Thing. They speed off. At Camp Chippewa, Joel says goodbye to Wednesday, and they kiss through a chain link fence. Meanwhile, Debbie manically drives after Thing and Fester. Gomez is at an all-time low when Fester shows up and the brothers reconcile. The kids show up next, and the Addams family is officially reunited. But they've got company. Debbie straps them all to electric chairs. She reveals a villain origin story where she kills her parents for getting her a Malibu Barbie. Debbie finally flips the switch, but she didn't count on Pubert. Shocking! Months later, Margaret and Cousin It visit with their new nanny, Dementia, who looks like a much better match for Fester. Up next is the Addams Family reunion. We've got a new cast yet again, including the introduction of Nicole Fugere as Wednesday, who will carry on the role in the reboot TV series, which we'll get to soon. Gomez and Morticia are played by a couple of all-stars, the legendary Tim Curry and Daryl Hannah, who you might remember from movies like Blade Runner and Kill Bill. In fact, this straight-to-DVD sequel was designed to bridge the feature series to the upcoming new TV show. Like tons of other installments, Reunion starts off with a visitor to the Addams mansion, this time a terrified mailman. He tries to drop off the mail, but the box itself attacks him. The culprits are, of course, none other than Wednesday and Pugsley, saved by Gomez. He goes through the mail until he finds what he's looking for, a book of some sort. He enters the house holding the book and summons his family. What's in his possession is a record of every Addams who ever lived. He pays the book's organizer for his relatives' contact info. Just then, Grandmama and Grandpapa arrive. They're planning to stay for an extended duration, much to the other Addams' delight. In private with Morticia, Gomez asks if something might have been strange about his grandparents. She isn't too sure. His suspicions are right, though. The grandparents are making the house uncharacteristically cheery. Fester diagnoses them with Walzheimer's, a tendency for ordinary behavior in the elderly. Later, Gomez receives more mail and is invited to a family reunion out of town. He hopes to find a witch doctor in the family who may have a cure for Walzheimer's. They pack up and are ready for the big trip. But wait, where are Pugsley and Wednesday? Kids will be kids. Elsewhere, at the Family Tree magazine, their invite machine seriously glitches. And that's not all. Gomez notices on the invite that Addams is only spelled with one D. Something isn't right here. They reach the resort, but Wednesday wants to go home immediately. It's just too cheery. On the other hand, the grandparents totally love it, much to Gomez's horror. In the lobby, the reunion takes place, and everyone looks so normal. They're greeted by Doris, who seems oblivious to all the Addams' traditions. Yeah, they're definitely not related. She introduces her psychiatrist husband, Dr. Philip Addams, and Gomez believes he's found his witch doctor. Back at the Addams Manor, a family looking for the 1D Addams reunion gets the address mixed up. That's gonna go great. Not. Back at the reunion, Pugsley meets Gina, a girl whom he has a bit of a crush on. Morticia talks to the other moms, but of course, she is much stranger. Wednesday plays bocce ball, and at the Addams Manor, Philip's brother and his wife are greeted by Grandmama and Cousin It. At the resort, Philip plots to murder his dad to get a payout from his will. Gomez asks Philip about his grandparents' condition, but he's too distracted by his own father's antics. Gomez continues to lobby him, but Philip refuses to budge. So they make a wager. If Gomez wins at darts, Philip has to help him, but if Gomez loses, he's on the hook for $10,000. It's hilariously easy for Gomez. Bullseye. Back at the mansion, the 1D Addams play a game of their own against Cousin It. Granny serves the wife a vegetarian meal of nightshade. She runs away. At the resort, Philip challenges Gomez to ping pong, then actual tennis, but the result is always the same. Gomez whoops him. Philip's final serve is sabotaged by Pugsley and Wednesday, and I think that's game. Gomez and Morticia show up to the reunion party and cut a rug. Gosh, who can compete with that? Outside, Wednesday, Pugsley, and Gina dig up the grave of the resort's founder. The party reaches its height when Philip's father takes the stage. He unexpectedly unleashes on them. After his dad's done, Philip attacks Gomez and they have a public knife fight. Deborah comes into the room chased by a demon dog, Fester, and Thing, adding to the mayhem. Is this how every reunion goes? Back at the mansion, Philip's brother and his wife are chased out and find an emergency exit that spits them into the swamp. At the reunion, the police arrive and apprehend all the Double D Addams. The kids get taken away by CPS. Pugsley and Wednesday are interviewed by a child psychologist, while Thing is trapped by a dog catcher, and Fester is sent to a mental asylum. Philip's dad ends up bailing out Gomez and Morticia. They had to track and reunite the Addams family. They start by digging up Lurch. Next, they bust Fester out of his shock treatment, even though he loves it. Finally, they reach Wednesday and Pugsley, who have been adopted by Deborah. They come back to the mansion and Gomez reveals that they left their normal grandparents under the care of Deborah. That's kind of weird, but okay. The film wraps up with fireworks on the porch, reunited once again to never be torn apart. Until the next time the plot needs it. That same year came an updated TV series, The New Addams Family. Episode 1, Halloween with the Addams Family, is a remake. The episode opens with a night before Christmas style rhyme, where all the Addamses are set for the big day. We begin with Gomez celebrating the big day. He hooks up with his wife, off screen of course, and carves a pumpkin with his sword. Pugsley and Wednesday reveal their Halloween costumes, famous 90s film critics Siskel and Ebert. It delightfully horrifies their parents. Outside, danger lurks. Two thieves stake out the Addams property. Gomez mistakes them for trick-or-treaters and invites them into the house. They meet the whole clan and are freaked out. Gomez stumbles on their bag and finds that it's full of money. He willingly adds more to their pile. The burglars confer and decide to rip the place off. They hold a gun to the Addams, but robbery at gunpoint happens to be Fester's favorite game. He catches a bullet in his mouth. Are we sure this guy's not Superman in disguise? Elsewhere in town, Pugsley and Wednesday go trick-or-treating and encounter a couple who wants them to play a trick on them before they give the kids a treat. We'll check back up on them later. At the Addams mansion, Gomez, Morticia, Lurch, and Grandmama are tied up. The burglar asks where they keep the loot. Gomez gives directions, and off they go. The burglars quickly fall through a trapdoor and almost lose their heads. Back with Pugsley and Wednesday, they jerry-rig the doorbell to electrocute the owners of the house they visited. Can't say I'm shocked. At the mansion, the burglars, sick of games, specifically ask where the family keeps their money. Morticia leads them to the kitchen, where they open a skull and finally find what they're looking for. In the living, or should I say dying room, Fester easily slips the rope off and they go after the burglars. They get terrorized, bumping into each member of the family. Just then, the police bring Wednesday and Pugsley home, but he's not too concerned. The burglars take this chance to willingly turn themselves in to escape this house of horrors. The episode ends with a family feast where Gomez toasts to Halloween. New cast, same old spooky antics. Let's see what happens next. Episode 2, Deadbeat Relatives, begins when Wednesday recites a spell to raise the dead, bringing back the long-dead cousin Vlad. The family reconnects, and Vlad reveals he and Morticia used to date, and would have gotten married if not for Gomez. He also reveals his cause of death. Don't worry, Fester didn't mind. Vlad announces his plans to kill Gomez and marry Morticia, but the family thinks that it's just a joke. However, Wednesday and Fester are suspicious. Vlad goes to cut Gomez in half with an axe, but hits a dollhouse instead. Gomez compliments him on the renovations. Gomez then tells him that they need to bury the hatchet. He swings again and falls out a window. On the ground floor, Vlad dances with Morticia and reminisces about the old days. Gomez walks in as Vlad kisses her and leaves before she throws the creep to the ground. Gomez wants to end it all by drinking acid, but it eats through the cup. In the foyer, Fester readies an anvil to drop on Vlad, but it hits Lurch instead. Gomez and Morticia have alone time, but he's still upset about the incident earlier and storms out. Next, Pugsley and Wednesday cut Vlad in half, but he quickly reunites each side. They go to Grandmama for advice. She says they need a spell. As Gomez looks through a photo album of himself and Morticia, Vlad attempts to shoot Gomez but is saved by Fester. Vlad challenges Gomez to a duel, with the winner getting Morticia's love. It's a pretty epic fight. It appears Vlad has the upper hand, but Morticia says she could only ever be with Gomez, and he gets a second wind. But Vlad seems indestructible. Wednesday reads a spell, and boom, Vlad is done. In the end, Morticia and Gomez go on a romantic walk through the graveyard. Nothing can beat their love, and Vlad was just foolish to try. Alright, episode 5. New neighbors meet the Addams family. Pugsley and Wednesday pay a visit to their new neighbors, Hubert and Amanda Peterson, who got married that day and started renting on Gomez's property. They're also total squares. They drop off a tray of crackers crawling with live bugs. Amanda screams. Classic Wednesday. Later, the Petersons introduce themselves to Gomez and Morticia. They hear explosives from Fester in the background and meet Grandmama. They're scared as heck, and once they're home, Amanda says she wants to leave town. In that exact moment, they meet Fester. At home, Fester tends to his wounds. He and Grandmama want to kill the neighbors, but Morticia forbids them from doing anything with hatchets. So they set out to try poison. Next, the Addams real estate agent comes to visit. Gomez asks about his new tenants, but the agent assures them that the Petersons are totally chill. Morticia sends Lurch to invite them over. Over with the Petersons, Amanda does not want to visit the Addamses, but her husband insists because they need to butter the real estate agent up and get out of their lease. They come over and are scared by just about everything. Once they're settled in, Hubert tells Gomez that he wants to move out. Gomez is amicable as ever and has a solution for all of Hubert's excuses. He notices Amanda is gone, when Fester says he just planted landmines in the garden. He rushes out to see if she's okay, and at the same time, she runs through the house terrified until they find each other. They get out of there. When Gomez and Morticia are alone, they're genuinely baffled by the Petersons' actions. The next day, the Petersons pack their bags. Gomez calls and says he wants to bring over a wedding present. When he's over, Hubert says he's being transferred to Hong Kong and can no longer lease from them. But Gomez buys their company so he can stay put. Next, the Petersons drop their wedding gift back off and leave a note that they've joined the Witness Protection Program.
Darling, do you realize the Petersons are the 7th neighbors we've had who've joined the Witness Protection Program?
Episode 6, Grandpapa Addams Comes to Visit, features a new recurring character played by a familiar face to the franchise. Morticia receives a letter that Grandpapa burned his house down and is coming to stay with them. Before he arrives, Fester presents Gomez and Morticia with a place for him to stay, Club Dead, which is a creepy resort. In that moment, Grandpapa arrives. He steps back into the mansion seamlessly and seems to be a mirror of Gomez. Next, the kids meet him, and Pugsley lets it slip that he'll be going to Club Dead. Grandpapa thinks Club Dead is a nursing home and pretends to be 50 years younger to prove his vitality. He starts by jogging at night, showing Gomez how fit he is. Then he shows off kung fu skills to Morticia and Grandmama. He even skateboards in a very fellow kids moment. He takes things a little too far when he flirts with Morticia, drawing Gomez's ire. When they're alone, Morticia tells Gomez that Grandpapa is acting strange and she thinks he's terminally ill. She wants to get him professional help at a nursing home ASAP. Grandpapa talks to Wednesday and Pugsley and discovers Club Dead isn't a nursing home. He's excited for his stay. Not long after, a doctor arrives to take Grandpapa away. She has her men take him away. He goes willingly, thinking he'll be headed to Club Dead. Later, Grandpapa returns with a new wife, Deandra, who looks an awful lot like Morticia. Those Addamses certainly have a type. Episode 10 starts when Lurch gets the door for Cousin It and welcomes him inside.
No call is necessary. Besides, that would give us a chance to leave home.
It reveals that he was thrown out by his girlfriend after having an affair. It does some magic for the family and Grandmama gives him some scissors, which he immediately discards. It gifts Morticia a giant comb that Gomez and Morticia had gifted him previously. Caught by the embarrassment of regifting, It runs off to his room. Morticia and Gomez check on him, and he reveals he's completely broke. Gomez has a solution, but It has too much pride and tries to get a job. He fails at each one spectacularly, but finds an interesting classified ad for a zookeeper. Gomez calls the commissioner to get It hired. They welcome the commissioner into their home, but he wants to add It to the zoo's collection instead of giving him a job. Gomez and Morticia have no idea. The commissioner and the zoo's employees come back the next day and cart It away. The Addamses read the news of the zoo's new exhibit, and Gomez Gomez assumes he's having a good time. Couldn't be further from the truth. He's miserable until a pretty lady shows up in his cage. The commissioner returns looking for It, who escaped. They find him electrocuting Pugsley, and It reveals his horrible treatment by the zoo. He tries to buy It out to run the zoo, but he drives a hard bargain. He ends up accepting payment of a hairdresser, a masseuse, and a Game Boy. Hey, not a bad deal.
Au revoir.
Shh. It's French.
Mr. It, come back!
Episode 16, Wednesday Leaves Home. One night, Wednesday decides to sneak out to put alligators in the sewers, but gets busted by her parents, who ground her for a week. Wednesday decides to run away instead. The police get called and visit the mansion, where they receive a trademark Addams welcome. The police want to talk to Wednesday due to the destruction she caused in town. Lurch goes up to get her to discover that she's long gone. He tells her parents and they start their search. Gomez, Morticia, and the cops tour the cemetery, but there are no solid leads. And the police get more and more terrified by the oddities they encounter on the mansion grounds. They reach Pugsley, who tells them she escaped last night. Outside, the police decide to pursue a case of child endangerment against the Addamses and intend to place the kids in a foster home. At the police station, Wednesday is dropped off. The clerk takes inventory of her possessions, which include Pandora's box. Yikes! I don't think dealing with the supernatural is in the handbook. Wednesday is put in a cell with a group of ladies of the night. The Addamses arrive to pick her up, and they find her terrifying the other prisoners. Then, Fester bombs the station. Is that terrorism? Anyways, Wednesday is back home to almost killing Pugsley where she belongs. What a wholesome family. Episode 20, Lurch Learns to Dance, begins when Lurch receives an invite to a costume ball. He doesn't seem very excited. Gomez thinks Lurch should attend. Lurch flashes back to a previous dance with a woman dressed as Cleopatra, when he accidentally tosses her across the room, knocking her out, or killing her. Hard to tell. It happens. Gomez volunteers to enroll Lurch in dance lessons so he can work up the confidence for his big event. The dance teacher arrives and goes over some basics. It starts out decent enough, but when she tells Lurch to spin, he picks up speed and throws her out the door. Fester tries to train him next in a very 90s river dance parody. This time, Lurch throws himself out of the house. He finally gives up on learning how to dance. Gomez lures Lurch into one more lesson, and by the end, Lurch feels good enough to go to the ball. But there's another problem. No one wants to actually dance with Lurch. Morticia steps up to the plate and dresses like Cleopatra. Lurch wears a sort of Zorro costume. The dance begins. Lurch gets to the big spin and pulls it off. What a legend! The next day, Lurch seems pleased with himself. That old lug deserved a win. Next, episode 21, Morticia and the Psychiatrist. Pugsley joins the junior troopers and throws himself straight into public service. Grandmama is devastated when her kitchen is cleaned to an unimaginably pristine level. Even worse, someone made cherry pie. Pugsley leaves a note, outing himself as the culprit. His actions affect each of the Addamses, whose spooky-yuki flow is seriously disrupted by this do-gooder. Wednesday sets out to do something. He extinguishes the flame and Wednesday runs off. Gomez has a one-on-one with Pugsley, but still can't get through to him. Next, the scoutmaster and the troop are right at the door. Morticia calls a shrink. Both parents go to meet him later, and he is eager to prescribe meds or electroshock therapy. The therapist advises the concerned parents to indulge in Pugsley's whims and invite over some of the members of the cult. They file in, and the Addamses seem terrified for a change. The Addamses' indoor fires and Wednesday's threats to infect the troopers with smallpox drive them out. Morticia calls the psychiatrist to do a house visit. He interviews Pugsley and decides to call Child Protective Services, but Pugsley doesn't want a new home. Just then, Wednesday shows up and gives him a little something to remember. Pugsley realizes his true self, and we leave them with Wednesday trying to drown him in the graveyard. Just like old times. Episode 29, Gomez the Cat Burglar, begins with a restless Gomez. He tries exercising to tire himself out, but has a bad case of insomnia that just won't let up. Next, he tries a sleeping potion from Grandmama. It knocks him out cold, but that night, he sleepwalks. The next morning, Morticia sees a news article about a cat burglar and suspects it might have been Gomez, since one of the missing items was a pocket watch that he showed off to her moments ago. Her suspicions are 100% confirmed. That's a lot of loot. Gomez bounces on a trampoline and hangs out with Fester. He flies off and knocks himself out. That night, Gomez heads out again, but this time, Morticia is onto him. She follows. Fester sees her sneak out and thinks she might be having an affair. He tells Gomez the next morning, while Morticia checks out the loot to discover more added to the pile. Gomez discovers the loot with Fester and thinks Morticia is the burglar. They both plan not to let the other leave that night. They both stay up for days at a time until Gomez passes out. Grandmama and Fester separately install state-of-the-art security systems. That night, the real cat burglar arrives at the mansion. That's right, it was a totally separate guy. They encounter into the living room and he runs away, right into the bottomless pit. Damn, I gotta get me one of those. Episode 30, Uncle Fester's Illness, starts when Gomez plays train with Pugsley and Fester. He overloads the power and short-circuits Fester, leaving him devolted. They hook him up to some jumper cables to get the spark back and he goes flying. Gomez calls a pro-electrician to look into it, but he quickly runs out screaming. They try various methods, but all fail. Gomez ends up deciding to send Fester to the ER. The Addamses freak out other patients in the waiting room while Fester gets checked in.
You look horrible. Isn't she sweet?
Fester has no pulse, no blood pressure, and a body temperature of only 1 degree. He sure is a freak. The medical team leaves him alone with the X-ray machine, and Fester gets his spark back. He assists in bringing a man having a heart attack back to life, making it probably the first time he ever raised the living. Episode 36, Wednesday's Crush, features romance from the seriously unromantic. It starts when Pugsley triggers an explosion that sends a bad boy biker flying into their yard. He gets knocked out. Gomez and Morticia bring him inside. He introduces himself as Sam, and seems more interested in the Addams' world than afraid like every other normie. He goes to find his motorcycle in the cemetery to discover Fester did some work on it. He's not much of a mechanic. Back inside, Sam is laid up with a cast. He wants to leave, but the Addamses insist he needs to rest up. He shows her a song on acoustic guitar, and Wednesday immediately begins imagining their life together. Fester unveils Sam's new bike, and it looks better than ever. But as soon as Sam sits down, Pugsley blows him out of the seat. He is brought back into the house for continued care. When Gomez and Morticia share a dance, Fester shows them a news article that reveals Sam's father is a tycoon who just opened a mall. Gomez says he's gonna call Dad up to invite him over. Mr. Segway arrives and is furious. Turns out Sam ran away. Gomez and Morticia convince him to allow Sam to make his own decisions and see how it plays out. In the other room, Wednesday electric shocks Sam with love. All good things can't last forever, and it's time for Sam to go home. But first, the Addamses throw him a birthday bash. He gives a speech, thanking them for taking him in. Mr. Segway appears behind him and listens in. He confesses he was overbearing and was wrong. The father and son reconcile. Time for one more birthday surprise. Finally, he says goodbye to Wednesday and he gives her his jacket. What he doesn't know is that she also took his bike's brakes. Oops! Episode 40, Fester and Granny vs. Grandpapa Addams, features the final performance of John Astin as an Addams. Gomez and Morticia bowl down their hallway when they're confronted by Grandmama and Fester for indulging the children too much and distracting them from chores. Gomez and Morticia seriously need a vacation, so they call Grandpapa to watch the kids, and he parachutes in instantly. He immediately starts spoiling the grandkids, but Gomez and Morticia were hoping he'd be firm. However, Grandpapa explains his actions will inspire rebellion and disrespect in the kids. The parents go to leave and ask Lurch to move their bags to the car, but Fester and Grandmama have competing requests that get Lurch spinning in place, unable to decide who to help, until he exits through a trap door. Morticia and Gomez arrive at a delightfully dreadful motel. Back with the kids, Wednesday and Pugsley have Grandpapa buried alive with just his head sticking out, when Grandmama and Fester lure them away with cookies. Fester covers Grandpapa's head with a bucket and leaves him in place. Fester and Grandmama play with the kids when Grandpapa digs through the wall and lures them away with fire-eating lessons. At night, he goes to read Wednesday a bedtime story until he realizes Pugsley is missing. Fester and Grandmama don't know where he is either. Uh-oh. In that moment, Gomez and Morticia return. They want to see the kids right away.
Where are the children?
The children? Why, sleeping.
but Grandmama distracts them with dinner, and Grandpapa gets into a friendly sword fight with his son. They finally go to check on the kids, only to find Wednesday. Gomez and Morticia ask what happened, and Grandpapa, Fester, and Grandmama all come clean that they lost Gomez and Morticia's only son. The doorbell rings and a laundryman arrives. There he is! Next up, episode 45. Fester joins the global mercenaries. A mercenary enters the Addams swamp and is packing. She easily dispatches the natural defenses, but forgot to look up. She gets swooped away by a bird. Inside, Pugsley studies up for homework on the American Revolution. Fester tries to help, but is honestly really distracting. With Wednesday, she tells Morticia that she's being stalked by a black cat. Fester tries to hang out with Grandmama, but she's busy with a potion. He tries to help, but the concoction explodes. In his room that night, Fester sees a recruitment ad for the global mercenaries and decides to enlist. Fester shows up at the training camp. Back at the mansion, Gomez, Morticia, and Grandmama discuss Wednesday's cat delusion. Grandmama says she's developed psychosis. The psych book says to indulge her delusion to cure her of it. At the training camp, drill sergeants scream at Fester. He loves their harsh treatment and joins their ranks. He shows up at the mansion in full uniform, much to Gomez and Morticia's confusion. In private, Morticia, Grandmama, and Gomez realize Fester has felt neglected by them all. They decide to prove to Fester that he is wanted. They each try different methods, but he stays focused on his new life as a mercenary. He runs into Wednesday in the graveyard, where she tells him about her cat issue. He believes her instantly, and she hugs him. Fester points out the cat, and they chase it together. They roll out Wednesday, and Fester captures the cat. Gomez and Morticia arrive to see that Wednesday was telling the truth. They also tell Fester that it's okay if he wants to leave them to join the global mercenaries, but he has a change of heart. No one can keep the Addams family apart. Next, the trial of the century. Episode 47, The Addams Family in Court. Fester gets a gift. A brand spankin' new rocket launcher, just like he always wanted. The neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher, arrive, extremely annoyed. Gomez is eager to write them a check for any damages. They warn the Addams that if this continues, they're going to sue. Fester sends a missile at them on the way out. Oops. Fester vows to stop using explosives to keep the family out of court. Later, Fester watches Judge Debbie on TV, a Judge Judy-style judge, and immediately falls for her. Gomez and Morticia discuss as they dance. Fester joins to admit he wants the Fletchers to sue him so he can appear on the Judge Debbie show. Fester gives them a blast to remember. Dang, someone call Oppenheimer! Gomez coaches Fester on the law ahead of the impending suit. With Wednesday, she realizes she's lost the gift of torture by failing to hurt Pugsley again and again. The Addamses arrive in court. The Fletchers take the stand as plaintiffs. The evidence is presented, and Judge Debbie is confused when she realizes the Addamses have already volunteered to pay for all damages. They reveal they're only in court so Fester can ask her out. Judge Debbie declines but ends up ruling in favor of Fester. At the mansion, Wednesday takes Gomez to show him a surprise in the dungeon. Pugsley sitting in a dunk chair. The Addamses sure make torture look so wholesome. Next, episode 51. Progress in the Addams family. Starts off with Gomez going for a wild ride on a supercharged skateboard. Okay, Tony Hawk. Later, Gomez and Fester's brotherly wrestling match is interrupted by Morticia reading a letter that says the Addams mansion will be condemned for the city to build a highway. It's not long before construction begins, rattling the foundation. Gomez and Morticia introduce themselves to the city planner. They're unexpectedly excited for the highway because of all the misery it'll bring, but they somehow don't realize they'll lose their home until the manager just outright says it. Later, they pack the house up. Gomez and Morticia take one last stroll through the house, which triggers some fun flashbacks. Until at last, it's time to leave. In the foyer, Gomez realizes this is ridiculous and they need to stand against the construction as Addams. The city planner returns to tell Gomez and Morticia the house is coming down no matter what. Gomez talks to the rest of the family like a military commander and motivates them. Fester starts the attack with an explosion, then Wednesday backs him up with a shot from her crossbow. The city planner storms into the house. but it's too late. Construction has already started. The Addams deadbolt him inside. Gomez intends to go down with the house, but their guest is a little less eager. He's confused that the house isn't leveled by one of Fester's explosions, when Fester reveals the foundation is titanium. The city manager vows to leave the Addamses alone. Wednesday gives him an express lift out of there. Just goes to show no one can keep the Addams out of their trademark house. Alright, episode 56, Granny, the Happy Medium, gets set into motion when Wednesday has an assignment from school where she has to write a paper on an influential member of the family. She intends to write about Great Aunt Esther, the first witch in the family, and will use Grandmama's medium skills to meet her. In private, Morticia knows the attempt to summon Esther from beyond the grave will fail, so she decides to fake a supernatural presence. At the seance, Grandma works her magic, and Gomez impersonates the spirit in a hilariously undercooked disguise. Grandmama knows she was being tricked, but turns out her magic worked. She brought back the spirit of the long-dead Uncle Jester. Jester fits right in with Gomez and Fester. They get busy yucking it up. Wednesday reads Esther's diary, but Jester makes it disappear, and he hijacks Pugsley's remote control plane. He's a bit of a pain, honestly. When Morticia's asleep, he possesses her body and tells Gomez to invite the spirit to stay as long as he wants. Grandmama wants a seance to get rid of him, but it's too late. Gomez already extended the invite. They hire a husband and wife ghost hunting team, but Jester keeps messing with them, including a classic pie to the face. He ends up scaring them away. It seems like Jester is here to stay, but Fester has an idea. Gomez and Morticia bait him into a joke so old Uncle Fester can make his move. Maybe he should join the Ghostbusters next. Later on the radio, they hear about a big prank on Mount Rushmore and can't help to be amused. He wasn't Addams after all. It's showtime in episode 60. Lights, camera, Addams. It all begins when a film director, Stephen DeVille, shows up. Gomez and Morticia are huge fans, and he's scouting for his next picture. Fester and Grandmama want to be in the film and try to do an impromptu audition for his assistant. Ouch! Instead of casting them, she runs away screaming. Morticia tries to impress DeVille one-on-one, but ends up accidentally exposing him to a swarm of bees. Man, these Hollywood types are not built for the Addams. Lurch even puts his hat into the ring. In private, Gomez calls out the other family members for shamelessly trying to get cast. But moments later, does a flip that impresses DeVille. He casts everyone except Morticia. DeVille starts the shoot and uses Gomez as a stunt performer to drop into the bottomless pit. DeVille's leading lady bailed on the project, and he holds an open casting call, even though the role sounds perfect for Morticia. Girls begin showing up at the house, but Morticia takes care of them. Morticia is jealous she's not involved, but little does she know, Gomez gets abused by the stunts again and again. She tends to his wounds when the assistant summons her to meet with DeVille. She gets all dressed up, but he was going to ask her a question about using a prop from the house. She desperately tries to be in the film by appearing in the background of multiple shots. DeVille gives in and casts her as a corpse. Fester assists with the big stunt and sets it off too early. Sometime later, Fester premiered their documentary film, which he secretly made with Wednesday during the production. Nice showbiz satire with an Addams twist. Episode 63, The Tale of Long John Addams, is a nautical pirate adventure. Fester and Grandmama find a vintage treasure chest. Gomez retrieves a book that recounts the tale of their pirate ancestor, Long John Addams, and reads it out loud. The family plays different roles in the past. Grandmama gets notice that Long John Addams is returning from the sea, and he makes quite an entrance. Grandmama gets the door but warns him that the governor is at the mansion, and he might want to steer clear, but he can't resist the temptation of Penelope, played by Morticia. The governor wants her too. Long John tries to convince her with his vast treasure, but Penelope says that until he proves himself as the best pirate of the sea, he can't have her hand. Long John and his crew, composed of Fester, Wednesday, Pugsley, and Lurch, set out to sail the 7 seas to prove they're the best pirates in the world. To the number 1 pirate, Sylvia. Off-screen, Sylvia gets the upper hand and strands them. Long John has to return home and is greeted by the governor, pointing a sword his way. He gets imprisoned, but Fester frees him. In the mansion, it's revealed that Sylvia is Penelope in disguise. Fester and Long John storm into the mansion, ignoring the fact that the governor is there. In that moment, Penelope reveals herself as Sylvia. She duels Long John, and Sylvia ends up escaping. The governor picks up and wants to retire to the 7 seas. Long John himself also wants to settle down.
But now that we've both given up piracy, how are we going to live?
Penelope returns for him with a big treasure chest. The story ends with Gomez revealing that the loot from the pirate treasures is how the Addams got their fortune. Next, episode 64, Keeping Up with the Joneses, starts with a family reunion with the Joneses, who are a sort of nega version of the Addamses. Seriously, they may as well be looking at doubles. They all share a family dinner together. Gomez and his alt version Ramon fight over the final Batwing. At the end of the night, Gomez and Morticia ask the Joneses out. In his car, Ramon challenges Gomez to a race tomorrow. The next day, Morticia's double, Putrescence, visits the mansion to apologize, but she ends up slighting Morticia in the process, and the husband's rivalry now extends to the wives. Wednesday's alt, Monday, gets along much better. They team up to terrorize Pugsley. Gomez learns to drive and prepares for the big race. Due to an accident, Gomez gets temporarily blinded. He still insists he wants to take on the race. On the day of the race, they start their engine and are off. In the end, both Gomez and Ramon crash. But hey, at least Gomez got his eyesight back. They decide to bury the feud and move on. The series finale, Death Visits the Addams Family, is one to seriously remember. A mysterious visitor arrives at the mansion. Death itself. Yeah, it's the Grim Reaper, and he's here to visit Gomez. The family is prepping for a Bastille Day celebration. Death tries to take out Gomez again and again, and Gomez thinks Death is just there for the party, but he announces he came for Gomez's soul. He takes his hood off and is actually wimpy looking. Gomez and Morticia plead, and Death gives them a few more minutes. Morticia is devastated that Gomez will miss out on the kids' lives, but he doesn't seem too concerned, as he'll be back to haunt her in no time. Gomez says his goodbyes and heads to the graveyard to meet his maker. Just as he's about to be sucked into eternity, Wednesday appears and says he can challenge Death. The duel is in the form of a raffle where they draw different events, including a coin toss, cards, and Gomez wins both challenges. It all comes down to a bout of jousting. With a twist, Gomez has to wear clown shoes, one of his biggest fears. They battle on top of the mansion, but he ends up vanquishing Death. The kids still made him a grave just in case, and the family gathers around it. Aww, I'm gonna miss this cast. Next came the 2019 computer animated version, The Addams Family. New Addams means a new all-star cast, and this one includes Oscar Isaac, Charlize Theron, Chloe Grace Moretz, Finn Wolfhard, heck, even Snoop Dogg shows up. We open with Morticia rising from bed. She tightens her bolts and puts on her face using her mother's ashes. Never seen a foundation like that before. It's a special occasion. She's getting married to Gomez. Their ceremony is interrupted by a town of angry villagers. They tie the knot and flee as fast as they can, hopping on Fester's back to climb a mountain. Morticia tells Gomez that she can find a new place that's truly them, a truly wicked place. So they head to New Jersey. The horror! Gomez swears he will find Morticia the perfect home, but their romantic plans are messed up when they run over a patient from the nearby asylum, who's none other than Lurch. Gomez and Morticia are unfazed and recruit Lurch to carry their bags. They head up to the asylum and find it abandoned. They decide this is the perfect place to make their home, and after some trial and error, Lurch discovers the theme song. The opening credits pan over family photos, catching us up with how Morticia and Gomez have Pugsley and Wednesday. Now that they're established in the new spot, Morticia calls Lurch for breakfast. Let's check in on Thing. Oh boy, I did not need to see that. I guess the hand has a foot fetish. Ew. Morticia delegates their household responsibilities. Wednesday and Pugsley get woken up by the Addams tree Ichabod. In this incarnation, the kids are still trying to kill each other. They get released and Wednesday sees another normal-looking girl in the distance. Gomez wanders the grounds looking for Pugsley to practice sword fighting, but he's got other plans. On his way down, he shoots explosives from a slingshot at his dad, but Gomez hits one right back and then grounds him. Gomez insists on learning the art of swordsmanship for Sabre de Mazurka, a rite of passage for every Addams where they show their competence in self-defense. All of the extended relatives are coming into town for it. Later at breakfast, Uncle Fester crashes in, 2 weeks early, to help Pugsley practice. Wednesday asks Morticia what's beyond the gate, and her mom insists that they have all they need on the mansion grounds. She forbids Wednesday from venturing out until she's older. Elsewhere on an HGTV-style renovation program, the host, Margot, pitches a brand spanking new town called Assimilation, where every house is up for sale, and if they don't sell out, her business is at stake. Just then, the girl we saw outside the Addams gate, Parker, bikes in to report the creepy mansion to her mom. Margot is dismissive, and Parker rides away in frustration. Back with the Addams, archery practice. Wednesday menacingly says she loves him and will help him prep for his big day, but really she's trying to get him 6 feet under. As he lines up by the grave hole, a red balloon from Margot's event floats by the Addams mansion. Wednesday goes to tell her parents that Pugsley is gone when Morticia notices she's carrying the balloon. They go outside to see confetti falling from the sky. Pugsley digs himself up too. The Addams notice the sky clearing, which can only happen if someone drained the swamp, which Margot just did. Speaking of Margot, she gives a house tour and opens the curtains for the big view. The camera crew suddenly goes silent at the sight of the Addams manor on the film. Margot passes out. The Addamses go into town and get the lay of the land. Gomez goes into a Starbucks-style coffee shop and freaks the barista out with Thing on his shoulder. He leaves, eating a cup of grounds. The Addamses follow the sound of a song to the town square and find a group of performers. Fester performs next and scares everyone off by unleashing actual bats. Margot approaches them next and offers the family a free home makeover. Wednesday is interested. Morticia wants to shut it down, but Gomez wants to be polite and invite her over. At home, Gomez shows Pugsley the sword for the mazurka. Pugsley seems a little nervous, and in that moment, Margot's camera crew arrives at the front door along with Parker. They get chased into the house by Kitty Cat, and Parker waits outside. Margot drops off an elaborate basket. She begins a house tour and starts describing what to remodel, which is everything basically. Outside, Wednesday brings Parker into the tree and introduces herself. Back in the house, Margot begins planning demolition. Morticia and Gomez decline as the construction would interfere with the relatives' arrival for the mazurka. She gets thrown out with her crew and sets out to find another way. Later, Wednesday asks to go to junior high, which she learned about from Parker. Gomez thinks it's a great idea. Wednesday shows up and says hi, and a group of mean girls led by Bethany begin bullying Parker, but Wednesday is not having it and vows to make her pay. Over with Margot, she begins spreading rumors online about the Addamses. At school during a dissection lesson, Wednesday builds a Frankenstein-style device that raises all of the frogs from the dead, as one does. The class runs away, including Bethany. Wednesday earns the respect of Parker and her friends, and they invite her to the mall. At home, Grandmama arrives via the fireplace smoke. She's a week early for the mazurka, but is here to help prep. Wednesday comes back wearing a unicorn hair accessory. Morticia approaches Wednesday in her room and invites her to a seance in the cemetery after school tomorrow. Later, Wednesday hangs out with Parker, who complains about how her mom controls her style. She wants to wear something to shock Margot. Wednesday sets her up. At the seance, Morticia gets ghosted by Wednesday. She contacts her parents from beyond the grave to get some advice on how to deal with her troubled child. Over with Pugsley, he preps for the mazurka, but it's starting to look hopeless. Gomez confesses to Fester that Pugsley will fail the trial and his family will eat him alive, and Pugsley overhears. Wednesday comes home and Morticia can't believe her eyes. Morticia and Grandmama think she's lost her mind, and Morticia bans her from ever leaving home. At Margot's house, Parker debuts her new goth look, and her mother is equally horrified. Wednesday sneaks out that night and gets caught by Pugsley. He tries to stall when Morticia asks him where she is, but he slips up and reveals that she escaped to Parker's house. Margot calls her network and says she has a plan to bring the house down for her show's finale. At the Addams mansion, Cousin It, who's hilariously played by Snoop Dogg, arrives.
Please come in. Make yourself at home.
At Parker's house, she discovers a secret surveillance room deep in her home that monitors the other homes in the neighborhood. Margot catches and confines them to a storage room. She springs her plan into action. The extended Addams family arrives at the mansion for Pugsley's big day. Down the hill, Margot heads up an angry mob that intends to destroy the Addamses. The mazurka is off to a great start, even if Grandmama quarrels with her sister, Great Auntie Sloom. They take their seats and Pugsley reads from the Torah. Get it? Like Torah? He sprouts a beard that Gomez whittles down to a trademark Addams mustache. Pugsley gives it his best shot, but fails miserably. Gomez doesn't care at all and admits he should have let Pugsley be himself, and just then, the townspeople catapult a boulder through the Addams' wall. They keep shooting, taking out more and more of the iconic mansion. Pugsley has a chance to prove himself yet again by protecting his family. He sets out to stop Margot. Pugsley blasts boulders away with explosives fired from his slingshot as he leads the family to safety until they get trapped. The roof begins caving in, but Wednesday saves them by commanding the tree to grab the wreckage just in time. Pugsley blows the catapult off, effectively stopping the siege. In all the chaos, Morticia reconciles with Wednesday. Margot goes to storm out, but Parker wants to stay with the Addams family. Parker exposes all of the town's secrets and reveals what she knows from her mother's illegal surveillance system. In that moment, Margot gets a call that her show is canceled. The townspeople sincerely apologize to the Addamses and help renovate their home. As the extended Addams family moves into the vacant homes and Fester flirts with Margot. Are they seriously dating now? Pugsley becomes a man, and the house has never looked better. Until... that's more like it. 2 years later came the Addams Family 2. This time, the family goes on the road, similar to what we saw all the way back in the 1973 series. It all starts in a spooky-looking lab. A mad scientist works on an experiment. Nope, it's just Wednesday at her school science fair. Gomez, Morticia, and Pugsley watch Wednesday, even though she doesn't want them to. She unveils her project. She's going to implant Fester's body with the personality of a brilliant squid named Socrates. The fair's sponsor, Cyrus Strange, appears via hologram to give out awards. They give everyone a trophy, but Wednesday is outraged. Everyone clears off the stage, leaving Strange and Wednesday. He compliments her experiment and offers for her to share data. She says it's a secret. Later at the mansion, Morticia summons the family for dinner. Everyone arrives except Wednesday. She sends a note via Ichabod, saying she won't attend because her parents show her too much love. Gross. Gomez proposes that they take a family road trip to get the family close to each other again. They roll out a perfectly creepy camper and load it up. And just as they're about to leave, a lawyer named Mustela appears. He's representing a client who claims her child was switched at birth with Wednesday, making Wednesday not an Addams. Gomez and Morticia think it's a giant prank. They leave Grandmama with the house and get going. Gomez plots a 3-week road trip, visiting haunts all over the US and culminating in Death Valley. They're secretly followed by Mustela and his bulky henchman Pongo. Fester drives the camper to Salem, but notices a sign for Niagara Falls and wants to detour there instead. The gang arrives. He still has Socrates rattling around in his brain. Morticia tries to bond with Wednesday, but she's still cold. Fester encourages Pugsley to flirt with some tourists, but it doesn't go great until Wednesday uses a Pugsley voodoo doll to get him to do an impressive dance routine. Pugsley goes over the falls. Gomez and Morticia prep barrels for their own descent. Next, the Addams family arrives in Sleepy Hollow. Gomez tells scary campfire stories, but Wednesday still isn't interested.
Did Kitty do his business?
Indeed.
Fester tells the story of Wednesday's birth. He reveals he went to the bathroom at night and visited Wednesday when she was in the holding room with other babies. They're all screaming, so Fester juggles them to sleep, definitely mixing them up in the process. Gomez and Morticia talk in private, and Morticia concedes the lawyer might have a case to take Wednesday away. Little do they know, someone else is listening. Wednesday monologues to Lurch, considering this new possibility. Alright, on to the next stop, Miami. They're here to see the one, the only, Cousin It. He's joining the others on the road. the Addams' camper arrives in San Antonio. Wednesday talks to cousin It and asks if it ever bothered him that he's so different. It says that he had a rebellious phase until he found himself. Wednesday needs to discover who she is still. On the road, Gomez notices Mustela and rushes to distract his family, and uses Lurch to deliver the finishing blow. Morticia says they need somewhere to hide, so Gomez drives the camper to the Alamo Hotel. Mustela quickly finds them again, so Gomez volunteers on Wednesday to go with the motel owner to become the star of the upcoming rodeo.
Father, this will not end well for you.
He tries to blend in as a Texan. In the dressing room, Wednesday creeps out the other kids. The Addamses, in their new Texan disguises, watch the rodeo performances. Wednesday comes on stage all dolled up. She decides to pull a Carrie. Mustela runs for the stage, but Gomez creates another diversion. In the camper, Wednesday asks her parents point blank who that guy is. Gomez lies and says he's just a door-to-door salesman. Next stop, the Grand Canyon. Fester still feels the effects from being mind-melded with Socrates and inks all over the street. He runs to the bathroom and his tentacle arm attacks him. The rest of the Addamses are underwhelmed by the canyon. Suddenly, a private jet flies in and picks up cousin It. He sure is a player. Morticia gives Wednesday a necklace that's been passed down from every Addams, and she seems to like it. Pugsley triggers a massive explosion all over the canyon. That's gotta be a federal offense. Later, Wednesday catches Mustela in a trap and interrogates him. She discovers his client is Cyrus Strange. Strange video calls her and explains that he and his wife were separated from their true daughter at birth, and thought it was Wednesday after seeing her on stage. He invites her to his home, but she wants to do more research first. Wednesday plucks hair samples from Gomez and runs a campfire-side DNA test that proves Gomez isn't her daddy. Wednesday heads off on her own to meet her true father. She leaves a note and Gomez feels awful. Wednesday was secretly followed by Lurch. He's not an Addams either, so she welcomes his presence. Gomez and Morticia plan on going to Sausalito, California, as well as to bring Wednesday back. In Death Valley, Wednesday and Lurch show up with a gang of bikers, where Lurch hypnotizes them with dance. She discovers they're heading to Sausalito and decides to tag along with them. Lurch and Wednesday arrive at Cyrus's house. They're welcomed in. He's married to a bird woman? That's weird. Wednesday also meets Strange's daughter, Ophelia, who looks a lot like Pugsley. Strange shows off his lab and it's pretty impressive. He runs a paternity test that confirms he's Wednesday's father. And just then, the Addamses arrive. Gomez and Morticia want to bring Wednesday back, but she shows the test results. Pugsley sees Ophelia rolling in mud and his heart immediately explodes. Morticia and Gomez still want Wednesday to come back with them, no matter the test result, but she insists on wanting to stay with Strange. Gomez and Morticia are devastated. Pugsley, on the other hand, hits it off with Ophelia and discovers she's actually a pig hybrid. Strange reveals his wife and Ophelia aren't even humans, but animals he does experiments on. Morticia accuses him of faking the DNA test, and Gomez charges him, but he gasses the family and captures them. In Strange's lab, he explains a plan to Wednesday to use her formula to experiment on her family as test subjects. She refuses to pull the trigger, so Strange does it himself. She demands he turns the machine off and sicks Lurch on him, but Strange has backup too, Pogo. Turns out they were old buddies from the asylum. Both monsters turn on Strange and toss him around like a basketball. They throw him at the machine and he shatters it, freeing the Addams. But the experiment's ooze latches on and makes him into a multi-animal hybrid freak. He seems to have the upper hand when Fester shows up in full giant squid form. They duke it out until Fester throws Strange out of the house and off a cliff. Fester is dying, but Wednesday uses her necklace, which contains a drop of blood from every Addams, to concoct a formula to de-transform him. Ophelia is also no longer a pig, much to Pugsley's delight. Wednesday apologizes to her parents and accepts her identity as an Addams. They head home in the camper. They return to a raging party hosted by Grandmama and couldn't be more delighted. Wednesday asks Gomez why his DNA sample came back negative on her test. Gomez reveals that he wears a wig after losing his hair years ago, meaning the sample wasn't even from him after all. That catches up on the run of the Addams Family films. Now, let's get to streaming. In 2022 came Netflix's Wednesday, promoting the younger Addams to be the star of her own show. Jenna Ortega slips into the role seamlessly, and Tim Burton's direction fits the established universe. The series premiere, Wednesday's Child is Full of Woe, starts in the scariest place of all, school. Wednesday walks to her locker to find Pugsley stuffed inside. She touches him and uses her psychic powers, a trait unique to the Netflix series, to find the culprits. She gives them a taste of their own medicine. Now that's the Wednesday we know and love. The piranhas end up mutilating a student, and Wednesday is to be transferred to Nevermore Academy. Here we meet our new Gomez and Morticia, who previously attended the school themselves. Near the school grounds, a hiker is killed by an unseen beast. I'm sure that will be important. The Addamses arrive at Nevermore and meet up with the principal, Larissa Weems.
8 schools in 5 years.
They haven't built one strong enough to hold me.
Next, she goes to meet her new roommate, Enid, who is comparably much more sunny than Wednesday. Enid takes Wednesday on a tour of the grounds. She explains how Wednesday's shtick won't hit as hard here, considering she's going to school with vampires, werewolves, and sirens. Enid is a werewolf herself. She points out Bianca, a siren, who's the most popular girl in school. Enid's friend, Wednesday, approaches them next with a totally not awkward interaction. Wednesday is completely uninterested in socializing with these people at all. Outside, she says her goodbyes to her family. She vows to Morticia that she will escape from Nevermore, but Morticia is hopeful that she'll end up loving it. She gives Wednesday a necklace. Her daughter takes it, but is completely unappreciative. Wow, she's a bit of a brat. Wednesday's parents pull away, but she's not being left alone. That's right, Thing is going to Nevermore. Wednesday gets to redecorating Enid's room, darkening half of it. Wednesday criticizes Enid's writing in her blog while she works on a very important novel on a typewriter. Enid gets back at her by playing annoying pop music. Wednesday responds with a threat, but Enid flexes her claws. Miss Thornhill appears next, the girls' floor mom, played by former Wednesday herself, Christina Ricci, who gives Wednesday a black dahlia. She warns Wednesday that the locals around town don't like Nevermore inhabitants in case she ever ventures off campus. The next day, it's fencing class. Wednesday challenges Bianca immediately. Like father, like daughter, I guess. They're tied up until Bianca strikes the winning blow. In the school infirmary, she meets the other school outcast, Rowan. Outside, a gargoyle almost falls on her, and Rowan saves her just in time, but she's pushed out of the way by Xavier, who turns out to be Bianca's ex. They actually met years and years ago as kids at a funeral, where she saved him from almost being burned alive inside a coffin. Wednesday discovers Thing creeping around her room and is seriously mad that her parents sent a spy after her. She threatens him and switches him over to her side to help break out of Nevermore. Wednesday gets driven into the neighboring town, Jericho, for a court-ordered therapy session. Wednesday is resistant to the analysis and excuses herself to the bathroom. She escapes through a window. She gets a 4-shot espresso over ice and meets the barista, Tyler, then repairs his espresso machine and asks him for info on train routes out of town. She gets harassed by a group of guys dressed as pilgrims from the nearby theme park, Pilgrim World, and takes them out. Tyler's father, Sheriff Galpin, arrives, followed by Principal Weems. Donovan knows of Gomez Addams' reputation and is immediately suspicious of Wednesday. Weems drives Wednesday back to school and encourages her to start making friends, as things are looking dangerous so far for Wednesday at Nevermore. On the balcony outside their room, Enid reveals to Wednesday that outside of claws, she is unable to fully transform into a werewolf, which severely isolates her from the rest of the pack. Wednesday finally opens up to Enid by telling her about her trauma, when bullies stomped on her pet scorpion as a child. Wednesday sends Thing to Tyler to give him her number. He calls her and she enlists him to help her escape during the Harvest Festival. That night at the fest, Tyler leads Wednesday out, but she bumps into Rowan and has a weird vision. Oh no, he's gonna die. She runs back to warn him, but he uses telekinesis to pin her against a tree. Plot twist! He reveals he tried to kill her with the gargoyle earlier. Rowan also says his mother had a psychic vision and drew an image that could be Wednesday. She told Rowan he must stop whoever is in the drawing because she will destroy the school. He's about to kill her when the monster gets him instead, saved by the beast. Wednesday ends the episode telling her parents about the complete chaos, and she realizes she's gonna like Nevermore just fine. Episode 2, Woe is the Loneliest Number, begins with Sheriff Galpin scouring the forest for Rowan's body. He doesn't find anything. He meets with Wednesday next, who tells him the culprit is a monster. Their meeting is interrupted by Rowan arriving back at the school totally unharmed. After a therapy session, Wednesday runs into Tyler again, who tells her that he believes her about the monster. Back on Nevermore grounds, Wednesday admits to Enid that she thinks she's losing her mind. Enid tells her about the Poe Cup, a competition using Edgar Allan Poe's stories for inspiration. Wednesday approaches Weems to ask to speak to Rowan. She reveals that he was expelled, but won't tell Wednesday why. The principal knows Wednesday, as Morticia did years ago, has been having visions and she needs to be careful, as they can be unreliable. Weems gives Wednesday a list of clubs for her to try so she can finally make some friends. On Rowan's way off campus, she confronts him about what happened. He totally gaslights her and denies everything. Thing trails him, but Rowan goes into the bathroom and shapeshifts into an old man? This guy is shady, or should I say shapey. Once he loses Thing, he then turns into Principal Weems. In Botanic Sciences class, she takes a seat next to Xavier. He draws a spider and animates it off the page. Wednesday excels in this class, publicly one-upping Bianca. In her room, Wednesday tells Thing that Rowan's drawing shook her up, and she's determined to find the truth about what is going on. Wednesday investigates the woods when Tyler asks her what happened after the festival. She tells him about the incident. She stumbles on Rowan's glasses and has another vision. Wednesday investigates the library and asks Miss Thornhill about a symbol that appeared on a book in her vision. Thornhill tells her it's the symbol for a student society called the Nightshades that supposedly disbanded years ago for reasons unknown. Thornhill takes a liking to Wednesday. She's an outcast herself, as she's the only normie, not supernaturally powered, teacher on staff. Wednesday and Thing search Rowan's old room for the book. Wednesday goes through her sketches and makes a startling discovery. She also finds a weird mask in a crawlspace under his bed. She hides as Bianca enters the room and confronts Xavier about why he's giving Wednesday attention. She still has a crush on him, clearly. Bianca also reveals her plan to rig the Poe Cup. Back in Wednesday's room, Enid is freaking out that her teammate is out of the Poe Cup due to illness, which was orchestrated by Bianca. Wednesday vows to work with Enid's group, the Black Cats, to take Bianca down. The next day at the Cup, the teams take their places in canoes. This is not your average boat race, with weapons and tricks heavily used. Wednesday goes to capture a flag when she touches a building that triggers a vision that knocks her out. They get back in their boats, and it's the Black Cats versus the Gold Bugs, Bianca's group. The Black Cats critically damage the Bugs' boat and run the flag to victory. Wednesday and Enid get a big trophy, but Wednesday is still seemingly unmoved. In a hall, she discovers the same symbol from the book earlier on a statue of Edgar Allan Poe. That night, Wednesday sneaks out and deduces a code to reveal a password. Never thought the snaps would become a plot point. A hidden door opens behind the statue, and Wednesday ventures into a hidden library that has pictures of previous Nightshade members on the wall, including Morticia and Gomez. Wednesday discovers a book with pages torn out when someone suddenly grabs her. Episode 3, Friend or Woe, picks up right where Episode 2 left off. Wednesday is bound and tied by the Nightshades, who unmask themselves as Bianca, Xavier, and their friends. They reveal that the Nightshades were shut down publicly when they caused the death of a normie kid, but wealthy previous members allow the group to secretly continue. They have to decide what to do with her. Xavier suggests she pledge to join them, considering her parents were members. But Wednesday won't hear it. She easily frees herself and just walks out of there. Later, she studies her book and questions who the mysterious pilgrim man is from the drawing. Principal Weems announces Outreach Day, an event in town, which includes performances from Nevermore students. Weems, who overheard Wednesday shred on a cello earlier, assigns her to play in the band. In town, Wednesday confronts Xavier about his involvement with the Nightshades. He identifies the other man from the drawing. Very Very interesting. Mayor Noble Walker has a meeting with the sheriff about finding the bear, then welcomes the Nevermore students. Wednesday convinces Enid to switch volunteer duties so that she can have some alone time with Ajax, so Wednesday can scope out Pilgrim World to get intel on Joseph Crackstone. Pilgrim World is totally lame. Wednesday tries to work in a room with Crackstone's artifacts, but gets sent to chocolate store duty instead. Wednesday weirds out tourists and fights some bullies on her way out. She recruits the nerdy kid she just saved, Eugene, to help her get more info on Crackstone. She sneaks into a room of Crackstone merch and notices a girl from one of her visions in a painting. Too bad most of the artifacts are fake. She gets caught by the chaperone. Over with Enid, she starts getting closer to Ajax, who's holding off because Gorgons are trained not to engage, as they could lose control and petrify someone. She's not afraid though. They decide to meet up at the greenhouse later that night. At the coffee shop, Wednesday asks Tyler where she might be able to find the location seen in the replica painting. He wants to help, but she heads out on her own. That night, Wednesday goes to the house's ruins and encounters a hostile homeless man who Thing fights off. She touches all over the ruins to trigger a vision. All hope seems lost. She touches the door on her way out. Wednesday witnesses Goody Addams, an ancestor who looks a lot like her, captured by Crackstone and his group of pilgrims.
You are the true monster, all of you!
He shoves her into a barn with other outcasts and burns it down. Goody escapes through a passage in the floorboard. Wednesday wakes up and sees the monster. She tracks it into the woods and realizes its footprints turn human. Maybe this is a Scooby-Doo situation. Xavier shows up and she tries to show him the tracks, but they're gone. He tells Wednesday he believes her about Rowan, as he caught him in a white lie. He tells Wednesday not to trust her visions so much, but she's convinced of their validity. The Outreach Festival kicks off with the opening of a fountain honoring Crackstone. It begins to flow, but Thing and Wednesday have other plans. Wednesday shreds on cello as the fountain burns and burns. Later, Weems chews her out, but Wednesday swears she didn't do it. Wednesday calls her a hypocrite for working to honor Crackstone when the history is so dark. Weems wants to build a better future, and they leave in disagreement. That night, Ajax accidentally views himself in the mirror and turns to stone, standing Enid up on their date. Yikes. Sheriff Gulpin discovers photo evidence of the monster taken during its last killing of the homeless man Wednesday encountered earlier. Episode 4, Whoa, What a Night, begins with Thing helping Wednesday break into the coroner's office. She finds the homeless man's body and examines it. In that moment, Sheriff Gulpin and the coroner return. The coroner shows him something weird. I wonder where those toes went. Dunlap leaves, and the coroner finds Wednesday hiding in a drawer. She plays dead, and he buys it. In her room, Wednesday goes over her investigation findings with Enid. The killer is taking body parts from each victim as a trophy. Wednesday is honestly impressed, but Enid literally passes out. At Botanical Sciences class, Miss Thornhill asks for volunteers to help decorate for the upcoming Raven Dance on Saturday, but Wednesday has no interest in that. She notices a scar on Xavier's neck. Could he be the killer? After class, she shows him to his art studio and finds tons of drawings of the monster. That's not suspicious or anything. He catches her as she leaves. He thinks she's going to invite him to the dance. She sees the perfect opportunity to get closer to him. Looks like Wednesday just got herself a date. Enid is thrilled and takes Wednesday dress shopping, but Wednesday just uses it as an excuse to get into town. She meets with Sheriff Dunlap and presents Xavier's drawings, but won't tell him who drew them unless he shares what he's discovered. He tells her to bring something concrete and maybe he'll consider. On her way out, she runs into Tyler, who asks her if she's going to the Raven Dance. He seems really upset that she picked Xavier and accuses her of sending signals. Later, Wednesday sets up her conspiracy board in a beekeeping building, only known by Eugene. He tells her that he wants to ask Enid to the dance. Good luck with that, buddy. Eugene recognizes one of Xavier's drawings as an actual location in the forest. They head out and find it. Wednesday and Eugene enter a cave and find what appears to be the monster's lair. She finds one of the beast's claws on the ground, and next, Wednesday returns to Xavier's studio and gets caught. He says he drew the monster because he's been dreaming of it. He realizes she only asked him to the dance for the investigation and gets pissed. He sends her away, leaving Wednesday without a date. Wednesday brings the claws to Sheriff Dunlap. He agrees to run it for DNA. Freed from going to the Raven, Wednesday gets Eugene to help her stake out the cave. Little does she know, Thing sends a secret letter to Tyler. It's finally the big night, and Nevermore pulled out all the stops. Wednesday suits up for a night of her own when Tyler comes to the door. Thing impersonated her to ask him to the dance. She has no choice but to say yes and give up the stakeout. Wednesday puts on a darkly beautiful gown. She tells Eugene they'll do the stakeout tomorrow. Wednesday and Tyler make a big entrance, and Xavier, who's there with Bianca, definitely is slighted. She runs into Enid, who's attending the dance with the mayor's son, Lucas, who Wednesday has fought multiple times in the Pilgrim gangs we've seen earlier. Little does she know, Lucas has a nefarious plan cooking. Xavier confronts Wednesday and tells him that Tyler and his friends assaulted him on Outreach Day. Wednesday confronts him, but he sincerely apologizes for his actions. She says she would have taken it further. Maybe these two sickos are meant for each other. Wednesday shows she's definitely an Addams with her fancy footwork. Xavier asks Bianca to use her siren powers to completely forget about Wednesday. In the woods, Eugene does the stakeout on his own, and someone blows up the cave. This is getting stranger and stranger. It's time for the last dance of the night, and everyone takes the floor. But Lucas and his friends set out to sabotage it. They rig the sprinklers with blood and carry the whole crowd. Wednesday gets a vision that Eugene is in danger and runs to help him. Outside, Enid is heartbroken by Lucas. Ajax helps her and the two reconcile and make out. Nice one, Enid. Wednesday reaches Eugene, but he's hurt badly. We'll see if he makes it. The drama continues in episode 5. You reap what you woe. It opens with a flashback to 1990, when Gomez Addams was a student at Nevermore. Principal Weems, a student at the time, tells police that Gomez killed the other man because they were fighting over Morticia. In the present, it's Parents' Weekend. Weems addresses an audience of students and confirms Eugene will recover. Phew. Wednesday reunites with her family and tells them about school. The Addams parents meet the Weems. She reports that Wednesday has not done well assimilating at all. She recommends a family therapy session for them, and of course, Gomez is all for it. Sheriff Dunlap waits for DNA results when he gets startling news. The coroner killed himself. Whoa! The Addams therapy session is awkward as heck. Wednesday confronts her parents on the alleged murder of Garrett Gates back in the 90s. Morticia shuts the session down completely. Outside, Morticia confronts her for accusing Gomez and says she doesn't know the full story. Later, Sheriff Dunlap receives the coroner's suicide note, and it claims he covered up an old case years ago. The case of Garrett Gates specifically. Damn! Wednesday secretly follows Morticia to a cemetery. She lays flowers on a grave. What is going on here? During breakfast at Nevermore, Sheriff Dunlap publicly arrests Gomez for the murder of Gates. Gomez is behind bars. Wednesday asks him what happened with Garrett. Gomez reveals he had a huge crush on Morticia, but Garrett started stalking her. The police did nothing, leaving Gomez and Morticia to deal with the psycho on their own. At the Raven Dance 30 years ago, Garrett tried to attack. He and Gomez got in a fight, which ended in Gomez accidentally stabbing Garrett and throwing him off the building. However, Wednesday notices a few tells in Gomez's telling of this tale, suggesting Dad might be lying about some of the story.
The way he smooths his mustache. The way he delivers a comforting wink.
Wednesday heads to Sheriff Dunlap's office to vouch for her father. She claims someone is trying to derail her investigation by digging up this old case. Dunlap reveals the DNA from the claw came back as inconclusive too. He also tells Wednesday that Garrett's entire family was murdered as well, and Gomez is the only suspect. Wednesday joins Pugsley on a dock. He's sullen about Gomez, but they do some nice sibling grenade fishing to cheer him up. Wednesday assures Pugsley that Gomez is innocent. Wednesday finds Morticia in the Nightshade library. She reveals that Goody Addams, Wednesday's ancestor from the painting, formed the Nightshades to protect outcasts from the bigotry of the common man. Morticia reveals the truth of Garrett's death. Garrett bested Gomez, and Morticia dealt the fatal sword blow. Gomez takes the fall. Wednesday sets out to dig up Garrett's grave to examine the body, but they get caught. Both get arrested. In jail, Wednesday reveals she found evidence on Garrett's body that he was poisoned. She has a vision that Garrett intended to kill the entire school, but the poison bottle broke in his pocket during the fight with Gomez. The Addams meet with Mayor Walker, who was the sheriff at the time. He admits that Garrett's father put him up to it, and Walker covered it up to keep the peace. They get Gates to drop all charges against Gomez. Outside the office, Wednesday opens up to her mom about her visions. Morticia tells her someone from beyond the grave will be needed to train her and cautions her about communicating with Goody. Elsewhere, Enid and Bianca deal with their own issues with their parents, but both kids stand up and choose their own well-being first. Wednesday says goodbye to her family. I hope they visit again soon. Wednesday looks through her mother's yearbook and notices Weems shapeshifted into Judy Garland at the talent show. She deduces that Rowan was actually murdered by the Beast, and Weems took his place to cover it up. Their meeting gets interrupted by a frightening message burned on the lawn. Episode 6, Quid Pro Woe, begins with Wednesday holding a seance to contact Goody Addams. But nothing happens. Wednesday receives a note under her door summoning her to Crackstone's crypt. What she finds is completely unexpected. That's right, it's a birthday party. She ignores them completely to investigate the tomb. She touches part of it and triggers a vision where Goody tells her to go to a creepy-looking metal gate. Later, Xavier approaches Wednesday on the lawn. He offers to help in her search, but it's clear she still somewhat suspects him. Bianca finds Lucas cleaning up around campus. She can tell he's volunteering for Morning Song, a cult led by Bianca's mother. By Eugene's hospital bed, Wednesday confesses her weird associations with birthday parties due to years past. Her therapist walks in and pries, but Wednesday continues to resist. At the coffee shop, Tyler asks why he hasn't heard from Wednesday since the dance. She gives him the cold shoulder. His dad walks in next, and Wednesday tells him the same phrase burned into the lawn is inside Crackstone's crypt. He doesn't care. Next, she visits Xavier, and sure enough, he dreamed of the gate from Wednesday's vision. He confirms it as the old Gates family mansion. Thing uncovers a painting Xavier made of Wednesday playing cello. It's clear he has a huge crush, and Wednesday responds in the only way she knows how, walking away. At the coffee shop, Tyler runs into Bianca and hands her a birthday gift from Enid for Wednesday. She's there to meet with Lucas. The following day, Wednesday arrives at the Gates mansion. She sees the mayor creeping around it. Very interesting. She sneaks into his car as he drives away. He heads to the coffee shop to meet the Sheriff Dunlap when... Whoa! I did not see that coming. Wednesday gives her statement to Dunlap. She tells him the Gates family is behind this, but he's skeptical as they're all dead. At school, she gets chewed out by Principal Weems and grounded on campus. Miss Thornhill warns Wednesday against prying too hard, as this road could lead to expulsion. Wednesday calls Tyler unexpectedly to take him up on his offer for dinner. Wednesday convinces Enid to sneak out, under the pretense of a non-birthday hangout. She joins Tyler and they both realize neither of them is about to have the evening that they planned on. They arrive at the Gates mansion, and it sure is creepy. On closer inspection, there's some evidence that someone else was in the house recently. They split up to blanket the place more efficiently. Enid calls for Wednesday to check out the bathroom of Laurel Gates, the sister of Garrett, who was believed to be dead. They hear a sound and get the heck out of there, but they're met by the monster coming up the stairs. They get chased into an elevator, which brings Wednesday and Enid to the basement. And if you're wondering about the missing body parts of the victim, now you know. The girls make it out and meet up with Tyler outside. Also, Xavier is there for some reason. Okay. They tend to their wounds at Tyler's house. The sheriff walks in and is wondering what is going on. Wednesday takes him to the Gates house basement to find it totally cleared out. He's furious that she put Tyler at risk and forbids her from seeing him or continuing the investigation. Weems confronts Wednesday for sneaking out and wants to expel her, but Wednesday shows Weems the drawing from Rowan of her and Crackstone burning the school, and Weems gives her one more chance. Back in her room, Enid is done with Wednesday for using her to sneak out. She storms out, leaving Wednesday totally alone. In her room, she finds a box of photos taken of her from far away by whoever the killer is. Wednesday isn't afraid though. At the hospital, someone kills the mayor. This is getting so intense. I love it. Alright, second to last episode of season 1, if you don't woe me by now. Here we go. Nevermore attends the funeral of Mayor Walker. Wednesday notices someone really weird, a mysterious figure on the horizon. She chases into the forest after him. Yep, we got Festered. He actually needs a place to lay low, and Wednesday takes him to the beekeeping room. Wednesday shows her uncle a drawing of the monster, and he identifies it as a Hyde, as in Jekyll and Hyde. He tells her of a diary in the Nightshade library that has more details on how to deal with a Hyde. Wednesday sneaks into the Nightshade library and runs into Xavier there. He's frustrated that she never trusted him, but it is highly suspicious that he's been there after every monster attack. He storms out. Fester meets her next and has a joyous reunion with Thing. Wednesday finds the journal and reads that Hydes are loyal to a master that unlocks them, meaning the monster is doing someone else's bidding. Miss Thornhill interrupts next and asks Wednesday what happened with Enid, who asked to transfer rooms. Wednesday does what she does best and deflects. Later, Wednesday and Fester track Xavier. Fester brings Wednesday into town on his ride. Not exactly a hot rod. She follows Xavier to a secret meeting with her shrink, Dr. Kinbot. Wednesday rushes to Weems' office to report Kinbot, but turns out Kinbot is already there. She finished her assessment and has to file it for court. Kinbot suggests hypnotherapy for the next session. Wednesday keeps the meeting she witnessed earlier to herself. Later, at the coffee shop with Fester, Wednesday says she thinks Thornhill is the master and Xavier is Hyde. Tyler notices the Hyde drawing and recognizes it as the monster. They decide to meet up at Crackstone's crypt that night. She leaves Thing at home to guard the diary and heads out. Tyler leads her inside, and it turns out he just set up a date. He ends up asking her out, and she's about to go for it when busted! Dunlap decides to ignore them and move on. Probably for the best.
I'm not gonna even ask what this is, but I never saw the two of you here.
Wednesday returns to her room and finds it ransacked and Thing bloodied. Fester tries to use his electricity to zap him back to life. All hope seems lost when Thing begins to move again. Wednesday tells Weems about the incident and that the diary is missing. Weems knows about the diary and tells Wednesday that Faulkner, the diary's author, was killed by a Hyde before he could reach his conclusion. Weems says she didn't tell the sheriff about the killer's nature to protect Nevermore. Weems wants Wednesday to share her suspicions, but Wednesday refuses to trust Weems. Later, Bianca approaches Wednesday. She brings him to Lucas, who says he found intel on his dad's computer that he was trying to track down Laurel Gates, Garrett's sister. Looking at these documents, Wednesday determines that Laurel bought the Gates mansion back years ago under an alias. The next day, Wednesday visits Dr. Kinbot and unmasks her as Laurel Gates. But Kinbot doesn't budge. She thinks Wednesday has gone insane and tells Weems, but she gets interrupted by something at the door. That night, Wednesday and Weems wait in the hospital. Dunlap tells them Kinbot is dead. Wednesday heads out to confront Xavier. She locates trophies of each victim in his art studio. Dunlap and officers jump out to cuff him, but Xavier swears he's being framed. Wednesday returns to her room to find Enid moved back in, and low-key, Wednesday seems happy. She goes to see Tyler next and finally gets that kiss, which triggers a vision revealing the true killer. Tyler is the Hyde! Which brings us to the season 1 finale, A Murder of Woes. Wednesday invites Tyler out for a night meeting when she confronts him for being the true Hyde. Her friends chain him to a chair in Xavier's art studio. Wednesday starts torturing him, but the others get squeamish. Wednesday's friends rat her out to Weems, who immediately alerts Sheriff Dunlap. He interrupts her torture session and takes Wednesday in. She confronts him in his office, accusing him of knowing Tyler is the Hyde. Dunlap denies it, saying they caught their man. On her way out, Tyler confesses. Wow, what a sicko. Back at Nevermore, Weems tells Wednesday that in order for Gulpin to not press charges, she will get expelled. She tells Weems about Tyler's confession, but she's lost too much trust. Weems tells her to pack her bags. She's officially out at Nevermore. Wednesday visits Xavier in the dungeon to ask for his help, but with the way she framed him, not gonna happen. As Wednesday packs up her room, Enid is devastated. She has one last goodbye to say, Eugene. He's still in the hospital, but not doing much better. He tells her that the night when the cave exploded, he saw the perpetrator's boots weren't black, but red. And who do we know that wears red shoes? Ms. Thornhill. Wednesday confronts her, but she says the girl is crazy. Wednesday reveals Tyler told her everything. He emerges from the shadows. Wednesday outlines how Thornhill orchestrated everything, from unlocking Tyler's hide to the plot to frame Xavier. She tries to sick Tyler on Wednesday, but nothing happens, because that's not Tyler. Wow, twist after twist. Miss Thornhill, or should we say Laurel, stabs Weems with a poisoned blade. She turns her attention to Wednesday next. Thing rushes to warn Enid. Her, Ajax, and Eugene rush to save their friend. Wednesday wakes up chained in Crackstone's crypt. Tyler and Laurel hold her. Laurel describes a legacy of her family suppressing outcasts. Wednesday realizes that Tyler collected body parts to resurrect Crackstone. Laurel reveals that Crackstone's soul was cursed by Goody Addams, and only the blood of another Addams can unlock it. Laurel cuts Wednesday's hand and presses it to the lock holding Crackstone. Laurel says the words to revive him while Wednesday frees herself. There's some lights, magic, and just like that, Crackstone is back. Wednesday tries to stand up to him, but he stabs her. As Wednesday is fading, she's visited by Goody, who says the necklace Morticia gave Wednesday can conjure spirits and allow her to heal Wednesday. She does that and gets a much-needed revive. Outside Nevermore, Enid finally wolfs out. Not far off, Wednesday runs away but encounters Tyler, who transforms into Hyde, but Enid arrives just in time. They battle as Crackstone gets to Nevermore. He starts attacking the school. Meanwhile, Thing frees Xavier, who's trapped in the back of Sheriff Dunlap's car. Speaking of Dunlap, he encounters the monster battle and discovers Tyler gravely wounded. Wednesday arms up with a giant sword and confronts Crackstone. He's too powerful and launches an arrow at her. They duel, but Wednesday's sword shatters on his staff. All hope seems lost, but then Wednesday lands the lethal blow. Good riddance, creep. She still has Laurel to deal with though, who aims a gun at her, but Eugene comes to the rescue with a swarm of bees. Wednesday stomps her. Enid returns from the woods and reunites with Ajax. She sees that Wednesday is okay, and the two give each other big hugs. I guess Wednesday made some friends after all. Still, she has to go home, and we get a quick look at Lurch moving her bag. Classes are canceled for the rest of the semester, and she says goodbye to Enid, Bianca, and finally, Xavier. He gives her a cell phone with his number already programmed in. Later, on the car ride, Wednesday gets her first texts from him. The final image of the season is Tyler, still hiding out. I have a feeling he's gonna be a big problem. Season 2 kicks off with episode 1. Here we woe again. We find Wednesday tied up in a serial killer's basement. How is she getting out of this one? We flash back to 6 weeks ago. Wednesday reveals she's honed her psychic abilities over the summer and decided to solve the cold case of the Kansas City scalper. She receives a vision from a piece of evidence. After a heck of a time getting through TSA security, Wednesday arrives in Missouri and confronts the killer, but passes out from the vision and he takes her hostage. He tries to scare her, but Wednesday shows off her new control over her powers. With Thing's help, she knocks the crook out and turns her knife on him. It's time for school next year. Lurch drives the family back into Jericho, and this time, Pugsley is going to school too. He has a power as well, the same as his Uncle Fester, electricity. A car passes the Addamses in the other direction. It's a man taking photos of a couple, presumably having an affair. A group of crows takes him out. I'm sure that'll come into play soon. The Addamses arrive at Nevermore, and Morticia promises Wednesday to watch over her brother.
No more uncontrolled chaos.
I will bend this place to my will.
One big change is Wednesday's social standing. She's famous! She meets the new principal, Barry Dort. He wants to return Nevermore to its glory days and bring back some school spirit. She couldn't care less. Wednesday returns to her room to find a raging party hosted by Enid. They clear out and Enid catches her up on break. Wednesday gifts Enid one of the serial killer's dolls. Classic Addams. Enid tells Wednesday she's not sure if she's into Ajax anymore and even hides from him when he stops by to give her a present. Suddenly, an arrow shoots into the room. Someone rigged a trap that pins a stalker photo of Wednesday against the wall. Gomez and Morticia get Pugsley set up in his room. He meets Eugene there. Gomez leaves them with words of encouragement. I have a feeling they'll be needing those. Eugene shows off his powers to Pugsley. He can control any bug now, not just bees. Pugsley tries to hang out with Eugene, but Eugene just wants a little space. They meet their resident advisor, Ajax. Outside, Principal Dort asks Morticia to chair the gala fundraising committee, meaning Morticia and Gomez will be staying on campus, in Laurel's old digs. Morticia says she can be Wednesday's spirit guide in the meantime. Wednesday says she won't need much help considering Wednesday is psychologically a raven. Morticia says she had experience as her sister Ophelia was one. Wednesday goes out into the woods and stumbles on the crime scene. Cops explain he was a local private investigator, Bradbury, who got crow attacked. Wednesday meets the new sheriff, Santiago. Wednesday catches a man running in the woods who turns out to be the former Sheriff Galpin. Turns out he was working the case with Bradbury that had to do with the outcast. He wants her help, but she walks away. Ajax tells the newcomers to Nevermore the legend of the Skull Tree, which is animated in Tim Burton's singular style. A boy designed his own robotic heart, but it made him into a cold, ambitious monster. The experiment cost him his life. Now he's buried on the grounds in an unmarked grave, where you can still hear the hearts ticking. Wednesday has another cello session when she meets Miss Capri, the music department's new head. Wednesday is actually a fan of hers. Capri was a child prodigy. The next day, Dort sets up a pyre on the Nevermore grounds, which hasn't been done in years. He asks Morticia if she made a final decision to be the chair. She's still deciding, but will watch the pyre tonight and tell him. In Wednesday's room, she receives a painting from Xavier of the same weird crow we saw attack Bradbury earlier. Interesting. Wednesday also discovers that the manuscript for her novel is gone, and the stalker left a note. He's going to burn it tonight. Wednesday heads to the pyre and sneaks into it to meet the stalker. At the same time, Enid has a totally awkward conversation with Ajax. The ceremony gets going with Wednesday crawling through the pyre. Dort lights it up, but Wednesday escapes right on time. Dort honors her with a really corny painting in front of the entirety of Nevermore. He gives her a mic and, in typical Wednesday fashion, makes the audience hate her by rallying against the event and burns the painting. Wow, she does not care at all. That's the Wednesday we know and love. Pugsley sneaks off to look for the skull tree. He accidentally shocks it and the dead rise. With Wednesday, Enid bumps into her, and Wednesday has an intense vision of Enid's grave. Just like that, another mystery season is set up. Episode 2, The Devil You Woe. Wednesday wakes up with Morticia by her side. Morticia again tells Wednesday she's being irresponsible with her visions, but her daughter won't hear it. Wednesday decides to follow up with Galpin, only to find he's totally dead. The one-eyed crow stares at Wednesday on its way out. She touches Galpin for a vision, but nothing happens. Sheriff Santiago arrives and arrests her. Gomez, who's a lawyer, bails her out. On the way back, she asks Gomez about Aunt Ophelia, but he won't say anything. Over with Pugsley, he shows Eugene his new pet. They resolve to take care of the Clockwork Heart Kid. Wednesday returns to her room to find Enid looking hurt, maybe even dead. No, it's just a prank for prank day. One thing that's not a prank. On Wednesday's pillow is an eyeball. Very strange. Enid is also getting non-stop texts from Wednesday's stalker. They call the number back and it's Galpin. Enid is freaked out. Nevermore has some seriously crazy fun on prank day, with every student getting in on it except Wednesday. She asks Dort if anyone at Nevermore can control birds. The biology teacher, Orloff, who's played by former Fester Christopher Lloyd, says they haven't seen that for at least 10 years. Pugsley takes Eugene back to his new captive. This time, they try to feed him a sandwich, but when they leave him alone, he gets restless. I don't think those chains are gonna hold. Back with Wednesday, she sets out to visit Tyler in the mental asylum and steals the car from Enid's driver's ed lesson. In her room, Morticia chews out Thing for keeping it a secret that Wednesday was using Goody's spellbook all summer. She takes the book back. Wednesday arrives at the asylum and meets our old friend Tyler, who's sealed behind multiple security doors. She tells him that his dad is dead, along with his former partner, and thinks Tyler is involved. She wants his thoughts, but he won't say a word. On the way out, he tells Wednesday he will kill Enid the next time he sees her as revenge. Wednesday puts him in his place. At Nevermore, Eugene gets Pugsley out of class to tell him his pet zombie, Slurp, escaped. They go searching. Meanwhile, Enid heads back to her room to hook up with Bruno and discovers it's Thing's birthday. But before they can get celebrating, something mysterious happens. Bianca reports her findings on Morticia to Dort, who set her up to it. Dort wants a donation from Morticia's mother, Hester, but Bianca says they're estranged. He tells her to siren song Morticia into doing so. She tries to hypnotize the principal instead, but it doesn't work on him due to a locket that protects him from the siren's effects. Wednesday returns to her room to find Thing locked up and Enid gone. Wednesday gets a call from the kidnapper, and someone slips a note under her door that says "Play dead." Enid and Bruno are chained up in the school's clock tower. They look up and see swords hanging over their heads. Yikes! After a brief discussion with Miss Capri, Wednesday realizes the letters are musical notes. She plays on an organ that opens a secret passage. Enid and Bruno get really close in captivity. Poor Ajax. Wednesday arrives just as the machine begins lowering its spikes. Thing gets stabbed. There's a typewriter set up next to a stack of books and another puzzle for Wednesday to solve. Wednesday deduces the answer as The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells and types it in. That was close. The captor reveals herself as Agnes, the younger student who asked for Wednesday's autograph last episode. Turns out she can turn invisible. Agnes kidnapped Enid just to get on Wednesday's radar, but one thing that doesn't make sense. She claims she didn't kill Gulpin. Agnes tells Wednesday she can help her find the killer, but Wednesday leaves with Enid instead. At Morticia's place, Bianca visits again and uses her siren powers to get her to recruit her mother. Back in her room, Wednesday gives Thing a birthday gift, but he's a little too concerned to celebrate. He tells Wednesday that Morticia took Goody's book, and she is not happy. The episode ends with Slurp munching on some good old human flesh. Episode 3, Call of the Woe, opens with Thing getting patched up. Morticia tells Gomez that she called to inquire about a donation. Gomez distracts her with some fun instead, but gets distracted when she hears Wednesday in the next room, looking for Goody's book. Wednesday reveals her vision of Enid's death and the one-eyed crow. She needs to find the killer to save Enid. Morticia insists Wednesday's visions are still unreliable, and the book will add fuel to these delusions. Morticia reveals that the same fate happened to her sister Ophelia. In Wednesday's room, Enid is preparing for a school camping trip, but Wednesday is more interested in continuing the investigation. Enid also stresses out about needing to break up with Ajax. Agnes suddenly appears as Wednesday tells Thing about the vision of Enid's death. Agnes volunteers herself, but Wednesday threatens her instead. Over with Pugsley and Eugene, Slurp returned to his room in the beekeeping area, and he's growing back a brain. Weird! Eugene thinks Slurp is hungry for more brains, but Pugsley has an affinity for the idiot and says he'll look after him. At Gulpin's funeral, Wednesday, Sheriff Santiago, and Dr. Fairburn, Tyler's psychologist, are the only attendees. The sheriff warns her about getting involved in this one. Fairburn tells Wednesday that the only time Tyler's dad ever visited him, Tyler went hide harder than ever before. Over with Bianca, she checks in with her mom, who she helped escape from the Morning Song cult, which the FBI just raided, although the manipulative leader, and Bianca's stepdad, Gideon, is still on the loose. Wednesday, out of Leeds, has Agnes help her unlock Gulpin's phone using another student to impersonate his face to unlock it. She hears a voicemail from Bradbury that leads her to a remote cabin that is coincidentally close to the Nevermore camping trip. Nevermore students prepare for the trip, including Enid, who runs into Ajax. He tries to help with her suitcase, but Bruno swoops in. Agnes appears with more intel for Wednesday, much to Enid's annoyance. The Nevermore gang arrives at Camp Jericho. Pugsley comes carrying a mysterious coffin. They're not the only Addams in attendance. Gomez shows up with Lurch and Morticia as chaperones. In Pugsley's tent, Slurp gets some air. No way this can go wrong. Eugene is not into it.
Leave no trace, especially the bodies.
Dort rallies the school and outlines the rules. No cell phones or normies. His last point is immediately disproven when the head of Camp Claw, Ron Kruger, shows up with his scouts. He claims they booked the ground 6 months ago. It seems like the owners double booked them. Wednesday steps up and challenges Camp Claw to a contest between camps for control of the ground. The challenge? Capture the flag, or in this case, Zephyr. A pistol fires and the game is on. Camp Claw gets an assist from hidden military equipment. They get the Zephyr, but Eugene comes in clutch with a bee attack, setting Wednesday up. She's still further from the tower where she has to bring it, but shoots an arrow and repels in, knocking out her challenger. After the event, Dort thanks her, but Wednesday is still super cold to him. Ron plans with his campers to retake the grounds that night. While the rest of Nevermore does fun camp activities, Wednesday heads to the cabin and finds an entire wall covered in outcast obituaries. She tries to get a vision, but no dice. Outside, a crow watches her. By the campfire, Dort asks Morticia about her mother's donation. Morticia informs him she never called her back. In the woods, Enid and Bruno sneak off, and Ajax finds them. Enid formally breaks up with Ajax, and he is heartbroken. Wednesday returns to camp and asks Morticia for the book again. When her mom refuses, she challenges her to a duelo a ciegas, a blind sword duel. Morticia accepts. Camp Claw begins their plan to take over the grounds, but their leader gets eaten by Slurp instead. In the woods, Morticia and Wednesday begin their blindfolded battle for the fate of the book. Back at camp, Slurp finally escapes as Pugsley, Eugene, and Agnes, who's trying to impress Wednesday, look for him. Slurp visits Gomez in the shower, but Pugsley zaps him just in time. Slurp escapes and begins running through the entire campground. Over with the duel, Morticia wins, and Wednesday takes her blindfold off right in time to save her mom from Slurp. The episode ends with a new arrival at the Willow Hill Asylum, Laurel Gates. Episode 4, If These Woes Could Talk, is the mid-season finale. Dr. Fairburn interviews Laurel to ask what she did to Tyler so he can effectively treat him. She agrees to help if she's allowed to see Tyler. It's a joyful reunion. Not. Tyler throws her across the room, but she still smiles. Laurel definitely has something up her sleeve. Wednesday is in a cemetery when Grandmama shows up for the first time in this series. Wednesday called her to use her psychic powers to get a read on one of the deceased from the obituary. She guides Wednesday into sniffing it out, only to determine it's not human in the urn. Just then, a crow steals the obituaries. Wednesday chases it, but it's no use. She asks Grandmama to buy the ceremony so Wednesday can find out more about who conducts cremations. Grandmama agrees just to annoy Morticia. Wednesday walks in on Enid and Bruno hooking up. They're not alone. Invisible Agnes was watching them too. Next, Wednesday returns to the clock tower to have a secret meeting with Uncle Fester. She asks for help breaking into Willow Hill Asylum. He reveals Aunt Ophelia was imprisoned there before. He shocks Agnes out of hiding. I guess she's fully helping Wednesday now. Fester sets out to get committed and completely trashes a hotel room. Elsewhere, Dort clamps down hard on Bianca for lack of results and sentences Pugsley, Ajax, and Eugene with community service. Wednesday confronts Morticia about Ophelia's confinement. Morticia plays coy at first, but then reveals the backstory. Ophelia pushed her psychic ability too far and lost all control. Grandmama sentenced her to Willow Hill against Morticia's wishes. Grandmama gives Wednesday the deed to the cemetery. Morticia privately talks to Grandmama. Morticia brings up the donation again, and Grandmama agrees only if she gives Wednesday back the book. Morticia burns it instead. In detention, Ajax Alex paralyzes Orloff, giving Bianca a chance to run away to help her mom. Back at the hotel, Fester is a more than qualified psycho to get sent swiftly to Willow Hill. He starts asking around for a woman named Lois, the name that keeps coming up in Wednesday's investigation. He finds her as one of the cooks, but her name turns out to be Louise. They make out. At Nevermore, Agnes tells Wednesday about the man who signed the death certificate from the urn, Dr. Stonehurst. He ended up imprisoned in the asylum himself. Wednesday sends Thing to give Fester this new intel. Enid confronts Wednesday for neglecting her, but their conversation gets interrupted. Who could be doing this? One of the crows even swoops up Thing. Dort shoots it down and he tumbles with Enid, giving him a hand in the last minute. Wednesday runs into the school to find Avian, but encounters Dr. Fairburn instead, who's clearly hooking up with Miss Capri. Bianca's mom was secretly staying at the same hotel as Fester and got picked up in the investigation. Bianca sirens to the cops to make them all forget it all. At Nevermore, Morticia hears about Fester in Willow Hill and knows Wednesday is behind it all. She gives her daughter another stern warning. Thing arrives in Willow Hill and tells Fester to shift his focus to Stonehurst. A guard takes Fester to the old doctor, who's completely mute, with parrots talking for him instead. Fester gives one a zap and gets the cooperation he needs. Wednesday asks Orloff about Stonehurst. He had a little girl whom he built an aviary for. Sounds like this could be our bird master. Fester wheels Stonehurst around until he points out Lois's room as being a sealed-off maintenance area. Elsewhere in the asylum, Laurel reveals to Thornhill that Fester is in the asylum. The guards catch Fester and Thornhill interrogates him. Wednesday plans with Agnes how to break Fester out, leaving Enid out of critical roles, but puts her on lookout instead. Wednesday stows away in Miss Capri's car to sneak into the building, while Agnes causes a loud distraction. Capri plays piano for the inmates while Fester's crush, Louise, brings Wednesday to him. He's isolated with Slurp, but Fester zaps him. Fester and Wednesday set out to find Lois. Slurp escapes and takes out a guard, which allows Laurel a chance to flee the asylum. Wednesday runs by her in the hall but doesn't stop her. The asylum goes into high alert with Slurp on the loose. Wednesday and Fester get past the maintenance door and discover a secret row of cells of the outcasts from the obituaries. Wednesday realizes that they were kept alive to be experimented on, and Gulpin wanted to stop Tyler from that fate. Wednesday hears a bird and faces the killer. Turns out Stonehurst experimented on his daughter Judy too, with her blessing, and now she continues his mission. Fester releases a huge shock and the prisoners escape. They attack Judy. Laurel goes to find Tyler, who goes full hide and finally kills her. Outside the asylum, Fester says his goodbyes to Louise, and all the inmates run away. Back inside, Thornhill holes up in a room with Stonehurst, but they're not alone. Slurp turns towards Stonehurst and calls him old friend? What? They know each other? Then takes a bite of Stonehurst anyways. Tyler throws Wednesday out of the top floor of the asylum and runs into the forest. Episode 5, Hide and Woe Seek, picks up right where we left off. Wednesday is in a coma in the hospital, where she's visited by her parents. When they leave, she has a vision of Weems as the nurse, but well, it gets weirder. Weems is visiting her as a spirit guide from beyond the grave. Turns out they're cousins, removed multiple times. She snaps her fingers and Wednesday wakes up. At a press conference, Sheriff Santiago outlines the three fugitives: Fester, Tyler, and Slurp. As Wednesday packs up, Judy visits the hospital to warn her. She tells her to steer clear of her father's work. That isn't the only friend here to visit her though. He hides and Wednesday heads back to campus. As she returns to her room and Spirit Weems watches her. Wednesday tells Enid that she's in danger, but Enid is defiant and not going anywhere. Also, it's the Day of the Dead at school, with tons of honors for those gone to the other side. Principal Dort prepares for a graveyard ceremony that night. Wednesday tells him that he needs to cancel because Tyler is on the loose, but Dort refuses. Over with Pugsley, he confides in his dad about Slurp, and Gomez agrees to help his son trap the zombie. At the same time, Tyler hides and is visited by a vision of his father. He freaks out. A hitman hired by Judy finds his location and Tyler shows his other side. Guess there's nowhere for him to hide. Later, Wednesday visits Capri to ask about her previous experiences with hides. Against Capri's advice, Wednesday sets out to change Tyler's master to herself. Wednesday meets with Morticia next, who senses Weems's spirit presence. Weems draws Morticia's attention to a document, Thornhill's formula for controlling Hyde. Morticia advises Wednesday against it, but Wednesday, being Wednesday, doesn't listen. Meanwhile, Enid goes to Thing to reactivate the Nightshades, giving Wednesday some crucial support against Tyler. After looking for Slurp all night, Gomez and Pugsley give it a rest and visit the Day of the Dead festival. Little do they know, Slurp is there too. Wednesday finds out about the Nightshade's activation from Agnes. She crashes their meetup and loops them in on her plan to control Tyler. As Wednesday mixes Tyler's potion, Weems advises her heavily against this course of action, but Wednesday walks right past her. Classic. Back at the festival, Slurp makes his presence known. Pugsley finds him and gives him a zap. Slurp is much more human now and can talk in full sentences. The zombie asks to escape, and Pugsley obliges. Gomez spots it on the way out. As that happens, Dort conducts the graveyard ceremony, while Wednesday and her gang stake out the event for Tyler. He shows up and comes right for Enid. The other Nightshades arrive and he goes hide mode. Wednesday is about to inject Tyler when another hide shows up. The second beast is Tyler's mother, Francois. So that's where he gets it from. They both get out of there. Morticia shows and tells Wednesday that Francois was freed from Wednesday's actions at Willow Hill. Yikes. Later, Gomez tells Morticia that Slurp is Isaac, and Morticia fills him in on Francois. Yeah, these seem like two important people from the Addams' past. Episode 6, Woe Thyself, starts with Wednesday glamming up. Jeez, what is going on? Flashback to 16 hours and 36 minutes ago. Wednesday and Enid report to the principal about the Tyler incident. Dort imposes a school-wide curfew to mitigate the risk of a potential Hyde incident. The sheriff is highly suspicious of the Addams clan, and Weems visits Wednesday again and tells her that Morticia is disrupting her psychic power. Weems tells Wednesday to leave Tyler and Francois to the cops. Next, Dr. Fairburn enters, and Wednesday asks about Francois. He says she had a brother named Isaac, who we know as Slurp. Wednesday immediately goes to Pugsley and asks where Isaac is. He shows Wednesday a photo Isaac dropped of Francois. That's right, he's looking for his sister. Tyler awakes chained up in a hideout built by his late father. Francois tends to him. I can tell this is the start of another toxic relationship. Back at Nevermore, Enid has issues with her power. She has no control over when she wolfs out. Miss Capri visits her room and says Enid may be turning without a full moon because she might be an alpha, which makes Enid anxious as they often live alone. After that, Wednesday goes to Grandmama to ask for help locating Francois. So Grandmama tells Wednesday to seek out the grave of an old Nevermore professor to gain temporary psychic sight. That night, Wednesday heads out, which leaves Enid kinda annoyed. Wednesday finds the grave, and it works. Her vision allows her to communicate with the late Professor Rotwood, who's played by Mother Monster herself, Lady Gaga. What a cameo! Gaga, I mean Rotwood, gives Wednesday back the gift of sight, but warns that it comes with a cost. Of course, Wednesday goes for it and passes out. After that, Wednesday wakes up in her room to a horrible realization. They got Freaky Friday'd. Weems appears to tell Wednesday, who's in Enid's body now, that this is the price for breaking the Raven's gaze. Enid and Wednesday are both disgusted in their new skins. Enid wants to wait it out, but Wednesday doesn't want to waste precious time. They decide to pretend nothing is wrong and impersonate each other all day. Right away, neither does a very good job of keeping character. Enid runs into Morticia, who is none the wiser. She invites Enid to dinner with Pugsley fiercely that night, and over with Slurp, he's looking more and more human. He uncovers a secret room underneath a doghouse, which is where Francois is keeping Tyler. The family is reunited and gets to scheming right away. After that, Wednesday as Enid plays violin, and it's truly a jarring sight. Miss Capri enters and tells Wednesday that she needs to stay in a Lupin cage at night until she has the alpha thing under control. But then, Wednesday notices a portrait of Rotwood. The music room used to be her class, so she heads to the painting's location, which is her mother's current lodging. Wednesday goes to scope it out and hears Rotwood whisper. Morticia catches her and thinks Wednesday put Enid up to snooping. Back with Enid, she reads Wednesday's manuscript to learn more about her ahead of the family dinner. She finds a scathing character based on herself, so she decides to sabotage Wednesday by brightening up. But she breaks out into hives mid-dance. Wednesday, being Wednesday, gets revenge on Enid by going scorched earth. She breaks up with Bruno. Ay ay ay! After that fiasco, Agnes confronts Not Wednesday and says she knows something is very wrong. Agnes spills the beans on Wednesday's premonition of Enid's death, and Enid tells her off on the way out. Enid attends the Addams dinner and is absolutely repulsed by the main course, roadkill pot pie. Morticia and Gomez tell their children to come clean about all secrets. Pugsley comes clean immediately that he helped Slurp escape. Enid actually plays a good Wednesday and denies all. Still, Morticia thinks her daughter has lost her mind and demands she stay the night. When out of the blue, Weems appears to Morticia to fill her in. The jig is up, and Morticia knows about the Freaky Friday and orders Enid to seek out Wednesday by tonight to break the curse. Back at Nevermore, Isaac visits his old Professor Orloff and does something terrible. Agnes walks in right after but hides before Isaac notices. Meanwhile, Tyler waits in the car with Francois when Isaac returns and says the professor's power source will help them get a cure for Hyde at Willow Hill. Suddenly, they think they hear something, and Tyler checks the trunk to find Judy's corpse, Isaac's handiwork. But little do they know, someone else stows away on board. As that happens, Enid visits Wednesday in the Lupin cage and is furious that Wednesday didn't tell her about the prophecy of her death. Just then, Agnes calls Enid to report her location. Enid tracks her through Wednesday's phone and they head to Willow Hill. The experiment is underway when Tyler catches Agnes. Wednesday goes to rescue her and she's got backup. Nice! Out of nowhere, Wednesday begins transforming into a werewolf. Jeez! Luckily, Agnes turns invisible again and sabotages the procedure. Still, Wednesday busts down the door and attacks Tyler. However, she has to evacuate before she can apprehend him. Wednesday, Enid, and Agnes all escape. Wednesday and Enid head to Rotwood's grave, where they share deep down appreciation for each other. Aww! And the curse is finally lifted. Wednesday sends Enid on her way, as Weems reappears to show Wednesday the updated prophecy, and Addams must die. But who? The drama continues in episode 7, Woe Me the Money. 15 years ago, in a tiki bar, a young Dort with great hair talks up the bartender, who's an actor. Dort recruits the bartender to play the face of his movement, which is called the Morning Song. Whoa! In present day, Dort reveals his affiliation with the cult to Bianca. The next day, Orloff's body is being investigated, while Dort stresses about it being cleaned in time for his fancy gala that night. Sheriff Santiago says the police are taking over campus security. Over with Wednesday, she updates Agnes and Enid on the new premonition. Someone in her family is at risk, maybe even Wednesday herself. Later, she meets with Gomez and Morticia to get the lowdown on Isaac. He was Gomez's former roommate who was exploited for his genius. Wednesday tells her parents that Isaac regenerated and is plotting with Francois. Outside, Wednesday breaks the prophecy news to Morticia. Elsewhere, Enid gets chewed out by Miss Capri for leaving the Lupin cage. Her alpha situation is serious. There's a chance she will transform and never return to her normal self again. As a result, she gets sent back to the cage ahead of the gala. Over with Tyler, his mom is really sick, so they head out to get her some meds. Meanwhile, Wednesday continues her investigation by searching Francois's old house. She finds the hideout in the back and evidence that Francois is sick AF. She then returns to her room to find Grandmama chilling. Grandmama tells Wednesday that Dort is practically begging for her donation, and she showed up just to get the satisfaction of turning him down. Grandmama meets Dort, who unveils his new vision. Hester says absolutely not, so Dort uses Bianca's siren powers to compel Hester to give up the cash. This guy sure is evil. That night, the gala begins, and Weems tells Morticia that she needs to be honest with Wednesday before something bad happens. And Enid makes Wednesday promise that she will rescue her if Enid gets stuck as a wolf. In that moment, Ajax arrives and tells them that Bianca is in trouble. The next day, Wednesday visits Dort to shockingly find that Grandmama is primed to give a giant donation. Wednesday visits Bianca next, and they get into a friendly rematch. Wednesday asks her what's going on, and Bianca comes clean that Dort is a bad guy. Then she hypnotizes Wednesday into forgetting it all. But 2 seconds later, Agnes appears and tells Wednesday what happened. Thank God. But Wednesday is still unhappy with Agnes's assistance on the case and chews her out. Yikes. That night, Dort introduces Gideon, the bartender from the flashback, to Bianca. Gideon is mad at Dort and blames him for making his life miserable. Dort has other plans. This guy is diabolical. The gala continues and is a stunning show. Wednesday finds Bianca in the crowd and asks where her mother is hidden. And after ending it once and for all with Bruno, Enid goes to spend some time alone when she runs into Agnes, who is extremely upset at Wednesday for dismissing her earlier. Enid tells Agnes that she needs confidence and to be herself instead of emulating someone else. And Agnes takes off her wig for the first time. Wait, she wore a wig? Elsewhere, Ajax gets Bianca's mom out of the apartment. Next, Enid and Agnes do a dance routine for the gala that almost rivals Wednesday's from season 1. Nice! Mid-dance, Agnes turns invisible and steals the locket that Dort used to control Bianca and gives it to Wednesday. That is a heck of a distraction. The dance ends and Bianca gives a speech introducing Dort, but last minute she hypnotizes him to tell the truth, and he has no choice but to confess to the entire school. The bastard then attacks Bianca and holds her hostage, but Ajax petrifies him, and then a chandelier crashes on his head, smashing Dort into a million pieces. This has got to be the best gala ever. The night wraps up when Wednesday is upset at Grandmama for a mean comment she made about Gomez earlier. She blackmails Hester into an actual donation for Nevermore. Grandmama is happy to oblige as long as Wednesday stays with her over the summer. All's well that ends well, right? Nope, Isaac just kidnapped Pugsley. The season finale, This Means Woe, opens with the police searching far and wide for Pugsley. Weems advises Morticia and Wednesday to go to Grandmama for help. They do a family seance, and Wednesday has a vision of the past where Gomez and Morticia bury Isaac. What the what? She snaps out of it and asks Morticia what happened. Morticia reveals that Isaac used Gomez as a power source for his machine to cure his hide. Morticia saved Gomez, but the blast killed Isaac. Hearing this, Wednesday realizes Isaac intends to use Pugsley as the new power source. Morticia wants Wednesday to stay out of it, but there's no way that's gonna happen. Elsewhere at Nevermore, Ajax and Enid bury the hatchet and become friends again. Agnes's dad comes to pick her up, and she says bye to Wednesday. Aw, I hope she comes back next season. Wednesday gets the word from Eugene that he saw Slurp on campus, and he's totally human now. That night, Wednesday gets Thing to load up a crossbow while she confronts Isaac, but it's no use. The shot doesn't hurt him. He captures Thing and makes a shocking confession. That's right, Thing is Isaac's right hand. Goosebumps. He reattaches it and traps Wednesday in the roots of a tree, but little does he know, she's not alone. Agnes visits Enid in her Lupin cage and brings her to where Wednesday is buried. It's a full moon, and Enid risks permanently becoming a wolf. That is so damn cool, you guys. They free Wednesday, and Gomez and Morticia arrive right after. The Addams family sets out to save their son. At the clock tower, Isaac and his clan set up shop. The machine is ready when Francois lets Tyler take her place so he can be cured. He doesn't want to give up his power and struggles, but it's it's too late. The procedure starts with Pugsley as the battery. Wednesday arrives and frees Tyler, who immediately turns into his hide. He then turns on Francois and tosses her off to the side. She turns into a hide next, and they both fight. Damn! Next, Wednesday confronts Isaac, and the entire clock tower explodes. The hide fight causes Francois to fall off the roof. She's barely hanging on, and Tyler can save her, but she lets herself fall instead. Inside the clock tower, the Addamses come too. They all made it out alive, but they're not the only ones who survived. Isaac also returns, and it looks like he has the upper hand with his psychic powers. But Thing gets his senses back and delivers the finishing blow. Nice! He breaks off from Tyler and rejoins the Addamses. Oh, good little boy. Later, Agnes reports to Wednesday that Wolf Enid was seen fleeing north. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, Miss Capri finds Tyler and invites him to join a secret group of hides. Over with Pugsley, Eugene has finally accepted him as a real friend. Fighting zombies will sure bring you closer. As the episode ends, we see that Morticia finally trusts Wednesday enough to have Aunt Ophelia's journal. Now that their bond is restored, Weems departs back into the spirit realm. Gomez is ready to pack Wednesday up and go home, but she gets picked up by her Uncle Fester. Our girl is gonna get Enid back. Hell yeah! In the last moments, we get a first look at Aunt Ophelia, and oh my, she's gonna be a problem. Phew! That wraps up another semester at Nevermore. So what do we think is gonna happen in Season 3? Let us know what you think in the comments, and as always, we'll see you next time.